One fine day, a guy was lying under a tree and said that, without cultivation, without palace intrigue, but with an official position, but what a carefree life after rebirth. But suddenly a creature came up to him and called him master, and said she was his system spirit, and let him bind her to him and start doing system tasks. The guy refused her at once and told her to leave, but Spirit was persistent and asked why he was refusing. She could help him become the ruler of the world of perfection. The guy said he already knows how such systems work. It looks cool, but in reality, it's a race and fatigue, and the KPIs are exhausting. But in a past life, he died of recycling in 007 mode, and now, reborn, to work for the system again? Not gonna happen. The spirit told him to give her a chance. She would try to become a better person. The guy replied that it was impossible to work. He would not work anymore in this life. Spirit immediately thought about the fact that her master was rejecting her, and maybe that she wasn't trying hard enough. Suddenly, she told herself that she had to become stronger, and decided to use her magic to improve herself. The next day, the spirit came to him again, and told him that the most powerful self-destruct system had been updated. All he needed to do to complete the rookie's task was to bang his head against the wall, and let the master tie her up sooner rather than later. The guy replied that, no, he was afraid of pain. Let her find someone else. He felt very bad, because they, even in the toilet, do not give him peace. How annoying this system of his. An hour later, Spirit came again and said that the lazy registration system had been updated. It was enough to check in at the gates of the Spirit Sword sect to receive luxurious rewards. And let the master tie her up. The guy again answered no. And how is that different from marking at work? Duck kept asking herself, why does her master keep rejecting her? And maybe it's because she's not trying hard enough. In the evening, the spirit came to the master again and wanted to address him. But the boy stopped her at once and said that he did not want to hear anything. But Spirit said again, the system has upgraded to an unrivaled system of absolute idleness. Let her just tie it up and get a sea of rewards. The guy was about to say he didn't want anything, but then he stopped and asked, what's with the idle system? The spirit replied that the unrivaled system of absolute idleness, and after being bound to the unsurpassed system, absolute idleness, he will become invincible in the world of perfection, even just lying down. The guy was surprised and asked, just lay there and be invincible? Sounds suspicious. Is she by any chance luring him in to trick him later? The spirit replied that she swears, and if she cheated him, she would immediately break down because of the bug. The guy thought and saw that on the face of it, this system seemed sincere, and maybe he should try it? So he told her he'd believe her once. The spirit began to release a white light and told the host that she congratulated him for successfully binding the system, would immediately receive the reward for binding the emperor's appearance. And from mortal form, he transforms into the initial stage of an emperor. The guy was greatly surprised and asked that he jumped from mortal to the highest level in an instant. The spirit replied that it was detected that the master was breathing and was immediately rewarded with a level breakthrough and one chaotic Tao fruit. And he goes from the initial emperor stage to the second emperor stage. The guy got excited and said that even breathing can lead to a level breakthrough. Really a slack system. And since he had already reached the second stage of emperor, he would stop pretending. And he couldn't hold his strength back. He threw it into the sky. The disciples who were in the academy and asked, what was this hesitation? Was their spiritual sword sect in for a big disaster? The elder ordered him to immediately strike the bell 9 times and summoned all the elders to the main hall for a meeting. But this power, is there a new emperor? This power is unbelievable. The last time it happened was 500 years ago. Let them quickly find out what school this new emperor is from, and immediately went to the Great Shang Dynasty Mystery Chamber. After arriving there, the guy said that he had solved the signs of the heavens. Quickly let them report it to the Empress. An emperor named Wang Yang is in the spiritual sword sect. The guy sat back after the transformation and said that if things had been so smooth in his past life, in 26 years he had never even held hands with a girl once. The spirit then came and said that the master's desire to find a life partner had been detected, and would immediately now show the options available. The guy asked with surprise, the system of absolute idleness could even solve that? Spirit replied that the system had selected the most suitable options for him and he could choose. The guy looked at it and said that even without talking about who to choose, you have to pursue it yourself, too troublesome. Spirit replied to the host to remember to get the reward for the task of finding a life partner. The guy said with surprise that he hadn't even started courting yet. Where would the reward come from already? The spirit replied that Empress Yeling Lan of the Great Shang Dynasty was requesting an audience with Emperor Wang Yang. The guy got very excited and shouted that it was a great job, and his wife had come to him herself. The spirit replied that she was a consummate system of absolute idleness. But at the meeting, the advisors said that the Empress of the Great Shang Dynasty, who had conquered 6 nations, had personally arrived. But what is the meaning of all this? One of the girls asked, "Is this Emperor Wang Yang really in their sect?" She had never heard of such a thing. But the guy sitting next to him replied that he too had never heard of a person named Wang Yang. What is going on? The chief asked Elder Bai if there was an ancestor named Wang Yang in the history of the sect. The elder replied that he had never heard. He had studied the sect's genealogy. There was definitely no one named Wang Yang. But the man sitting beside him with Elder Bai said that the name Wang Yang seems like there is an unnamed disciple with that name in the sword ablution pool. But suddenly one of the counselors told them to wait. And he remembered. The founder of their sect had once studied under a master surnamed Wang. Bai also suddenly jumped up from his seat and shouted that this Wang Yang was the real patriarch. He had been hiding his name and guarding the spiritual sword sect all this time. The chief suddenly told Chang Feng to go meet the empress and let the others follow him to the sword ablution pool to greet the patriarch. Once outside, the chief came over and sat down on his knees and said that they welcomed the patriarch. The guy was surprised and asked if this was also a reward from the system. Spirit replied that it is an independent phenomenon. The system has nothing to do with it. The guy decided he could get away with it, and since that was the case, let it go. He told them to get up, no need for such ceremonies. The chief told the patriarch that the Empress of the Great Shang Dynasty was requesting a meeting with him, but it was unknown why. The patriarch replied that perhaps she had come for marriage. Everyone was surprised and began to ask how this was possible. And this news is just shocking. Maybe they misheard? Elder Bai said that the Empress has come to matchmake. This has never happened before. The patriarch said that since the Empress had come, he should personally meet her. At this time, the Empress had already sat on her throne and asked, "Did Emperor Wang Yang not wish to meet with her?" The servant replied that it was Patriarch Wang Yang meditating on the back mountain, and asked the Empress to wait for a while. The council girl thought that this appearance and manners were not at all like the legendary emperor. Had the court astrologer made a mistake in his prediction? Ian at this time realized that things were bad, and before his first meeting with the beauty, he didn't even change his clothes. He turned to the system out of the blue and told it to give him a spectacular outfit quickly. He needed to improve his image. The spirit replied that the task of the meeting had been accomplished, and she was donating a set of Imperial Dragon attire, and even successfully equipped a set of Imperial Dragon attire, activating the effect of the set. But the counselor realized at once that it was already similar to the emperor's appearance. Elder Bai was also surprised and said that he didn't think that their spiritual sword sect had such a powerful emperor. The empress also pondered, "This Yan is indeed an emperor, and his level is far above hers." Ling Lan walked over and told the emperor that she was begging him to save their Great Shang Dynasty. Yang thought at this moment, is this really the same empress who had conquered 6 nations? Ian held out his hand to her and told her to get up sooner. He knows of their difficulties. It's just that he has long since retired from worldly affairs and doesn't want to get involved in the mundane. Ling Lan said that if Emperor Wang Yang could save the Great Shang Dynasty, she was willing to accept any conditions. The chief was surprised at her words when she said that she agreed to any terms, and this empress was willing to make too many sacrifices. Yan suddenly thought about her words and looked away. Ling Lan said that if the emperor was not squeamish, she was willing to give herself up. Elder Bai was surprised to hear such a thing and wondered how it was to give himself up. The chief also said that the empress was willing to give herself up. This would definitely be the big news in the world of refinement. Ian realized that, although he was interested in the empress, but if he agreed, wouldn't he bring a lot of trouble on himself? The spirit told the master that this Empress Ling Lan possessed the rarest phoenix body. Yan asked her, "Is there any catch in this?" The spirit replied that if a practiced double perfection, with a phoenix body wielder, he could rise to one great level at once. Ian looked at her and couldn't understand yet. It's like you can't catch the wolf if you pity the sheep. Ling Lan said, that she swears by the heavenly way. If she breaks her oath, may heaven and earth punish her and her soul scatter. She realized the same thing. This Wang Yang is quite attractive. Will have to sacrifice herself. Yang said that if that was the case, he would ask the empress to show him the way. He understood that one would not be so lucky to get an empress as a wife for nothing. Ling Lan said that he was on behalf of the millions of subjects of the great Shang dynasty and thanked Emperor Wang Yang. The chief told the patriarch right away that the spiritual sword sect couldn't do without him. If the enemy seize the moment, it will be a disaster. The spirit immediately reported that the sect head's request to Master had been detected, and she congratulated Master for obtaining the Emperor Array 9 Heavenly Spirit Swords. Ian realized right away that this system was sucking up, also giving him an imperial array. Yan didn't hide it from them and pulled his hand and said that it was an array of 9 heavenly 9 spiritual swords. Once activated, it would protect the sect from troubles. Ian ordered at once for the system to activate the array. Fiery swords began to fly all over the city and descended around the perimeter. Everyone went outside and said that this is an imperial defense array. Their spiritual sword sect will rise up. The patriarch's abilities are unbelievable. Ling Lan immediately realized that this 9 heavenly 9 spirit sword array was even stronger than her state defense array. The spirit sword sect truly had amazing secrets. Suddenly, one of the girls knelt before him and asked him to let Qin Yao serve him. Ian was surprised and thought that this is another one herself came. At once, a love polygon. Doesn't that make the game more complicated? The spirit told the master that she congratulated the master. Liu Qinyao possesses the rarest spiritual connection body, occurring once in 10,000 years. Yang asked, "What are the characteristics of this spirit connection body?" The spirit said that the owner of this sacred body is faithful, reliable, attentive, and caring, and also understands his master half-heartedly. Ian asked, "Isn't this the sacred body of the maid?" The spirit replied that it was a worthy assessment, and his remark was very accurate. Yang thought about it and told Qin Yao that she could stay with him from now on. The girl was pleased and thanked the patriarch. The chief realized that it was not bad to have a maid around. The patriarch still remembered the old feelings, being around the patriarch. Qin Yao's future is limitless. Lin Lan asked, "Where is her phoenix palanquin?" This is the legendary Heavenly Crew Rainbow Phoenix palanquin, and it's an imperial rank-level treasure. Yan was surprised to see such beautiful heavenly horses in the world of perfection, and in his previous life, he didn't even have a car. The spirit suddenly said that the master's desire for a carriage had been discovered, and she now congratulated the master for obtaining the imperial carriage chariot of the 6 dragons. Ian said suddenly that, since the situation was urgent, maybe they could use his chariot. Qin Yao to the patriarch that he is right. She thought that the Rainbow Phoenix palanquin was already rare in the world, but she wondered what kind of treasure the patriarch had. Yang said that he was calling the chariot of the 6 dragons. Suddenly, the chariots of the 6 dragons appeared in front of them. The warriors stood in front of the host and said that they were greeting him. Everyone was surprised and said that it was the legendary imperial crew. Yang told the empress that he was asking her to go to the battle. Ling Lan replied that she thanked the patriarch. Yan got on his carriage and said that they were going to the great Shang dynasty. The warriors said that they needed to guide the patriarch and use the great Shang dynasty defense array. The guy suddenly told Ms. State Mentor that he couldn't hold on any longer. The state preceptor ordered everyone to hold on, and even if one had to exhaust the forces of perfection, one must hold out until Her Majesty returned. But on the other side, the residents were afraid and shouted for everyone to flee, because the army of the Shueyue Empire was about to break through, and they hoped for Her Majesty to save them sooner rather than later. 4th General Shueyue Zhang Yunqi tried to break through the barrier with his bare hands, but he had failed so far. Yunqi said that this barrier looks simple, but no way to break it, how infuriating it all is to him. Tay answered him that he didn't think the Empress had such skillful methods. Yunqi asked his ally why he was saying that. Tay replied that she had reduced the defense zone to the outskirts of the capital, thus strengthening the power of the defense array. Tay told him to keep attacking the barrier and let him leave the rest to him. Yunqi understood the order and started attacking the barrier. Mentor at this moment felt that she was doing very badly and mentally asked Her Majesty for forgiveness. After all, she could only protect up to this point. Tay at this time began to apply even more strength and summoned a dragon appearance attack. But the dragon suddenly started screaming in pain. Yunqi didn't understand what happened, and whose sword energy was it. But when they looked up at the sky, they saw that some guy had done it, and channeled his energy right into the dragon. Yunqi became very angry and asked who dared to interfere. Tae saw the 6 dragons pulling the chariot. This person has a serious background. Tae was respectful and said that he wished to ask. But Ling Lan told him that it was Emperor Wang Yang of the Spiritual Sword Sect. Yunqi asked in surprise, "Spirit Sword Sect? What kind of backwater third-grade seta is this? I've never heard of such a thing." Jin Yao got angry and shouted at him not to dare insult the Spirit Sword Sect like that. Yunqi replied, "A petty brat of the level of body unification. To the level of emperor, he has no right to speak." The spirit at this moment said that because the sect had been scornfully insulted, the master would receive a Qian-kun Heavenly Force Formula Sacred Martial Art as a gift. Yang stepped forward and asked if they would give him respect today. Yunqi got angry and answered him. Who was he to ask for respect from their Shui Yue Empire? But Tae stopped him and told him to calm down his brother. Tae stepped forward and addressed Yan as an honorable friend, and said that they had received orders to deliver Empress Ling Lan, and asked him not to interfere in this matter. Yang asked, what if he didn't agree? The spirit again said that because the master had a killing intent, the Qian-kun Heavenly Force Formula instantly reached the level of great perfection. Tae answered him not to blame them then for being ruthless. After all, they wouldn't just leave this place. Yang asked the system, what was the effect of this Qian-kun Heavenly Force Formula? The spirit replied that the Heavenly Force Formula could absorb attacks of the same level and repel them with double the strength. Yang thought for a moment and said that they were not worthy of him acting. He would just stand here and take 3 of their blows. If he gets injured, let them do what they want to the Empress. Ling Lan was scared and turned to the Emperor, and Qin Yao also told the Patriarch that there was no need to take such a risk. Those two were very strong. Yang answered them not to worry, they can't hurt him. Yunqi told the guy that if he could withstand his 3 punches, they would leave right away. Yang was not frightened by this at all and extended his hand to give him permission to attack. Yunqi didn't waste any time and immediately attacked. But he realized that 90% of his strength was like going to sea. This guy had something special. Following that, Yunqi applied the 3rd technique of the Spirit Shock Fist, the Dragon Fist tearing the void. But Yang used his defense and simply repelled his attack. Yunqi didn't even realize how it happened. Yan started to mock him and asked, his level of emperor, was it really just bragging? Yunqi tried to pass through the barrier, but he was expending a lot of energy to do so, and it was pointless. Tae shouted to his brother at once not to use this technique under any circumstances. But Yunqi didn't listen, and applied the evil transformation of the demonic body-devouring void. Yan saw that he had turned into a monster, and applied the Heavenly Force Qian-kun Incarnation Law formula. But Yunqi couldn't stop, and tried to break this shell to get to the guy. Qin Yao said that the Patriarch is so strong. Ling Lan also said that he was able to withstand the full attack of an Emperor-level incarnation. Does his strength really exceed the Emperor level? Yan saw that this man wasn't lagging behind, and immediately applied the Qian-kun Heavenly Force Return Heavenly Force formula. Yunqi didn't even realize how the attack hit him right in the head, and he lost control of his body. But Tae caught his brother. Yunqi said it's a curse. This guy definitely used some kind of trick. He doesn't agree. He wants 3 more strikes. Tae told his brother to take it easy. His body was already damaged. Ian walked over and replied by asking, since he couldn't continue, could his brother try? Tae replied that he thanked his honorable friend for his indulgence. They would keep their promise and leave. Qin Yao asked the Patriarch if he was injured. Yang answered her not to worry, he was fine. Lin Lan said that this martial art was incredible. Yen replied that he apologized for the humble performance. Ling Lan rejoiced and said that there would soon be a feast in the palace, and hoped that he would honor him with his presence. Yan replied that since the Empress was organizing it, he wouldn't refuse. Ling Lan and the boys went through the barrier and were met by the warriors. Ling Lan said that this was Emperor Wang Yang of the Spirit Sword Sect. He would also become the sovereign of their great Shang dynasty. The commander asked with surprise, is he going to be the sovereign? They sat down on their knees and began to say that they were saluting the sovereign. Yang didn't understand what was going on and thought, what kind of position was a sovereign anyway? The spirit said that she was congratulating the master for accepting the generation from the subordinates of the great Shang dynasty. And the meaning of grace was received. Ian asked, What was this meaning of grace? Had she secretly added a task system he didn't know about? Let her confess, or he would break the connection immediately. Spirit replied that no, absolutely not. Jan couldn't handle it and asked her, "What are these other virtue points?" There was no such thing in ordinary perfection worlds. The spirit asked the Lord to calm down and she would explain everything. She said that virtue points come from respecting and worshiping others, from doing good deeds, saving lives, serving the country and the people. Ian said, meaning that by becoming a good person one could become stronger. Why bother to improve yourself then? The spirit replied that it is not easy to collect thousands of blessings, but it is easiest for respected rulers and ministers. And once he creates a body of law out of virtue, he will immediately become powerful as a cultivator of the spiritual transformation stage. Jan listened and said that this is it, so the Empress is on the path of perfecting the body of the law. The spirit replied that no, the Empress was a very rare type of dual perfection. Ling Lan asked the great emperor, "What's wrong with him? Does he not like the capital city?" Yang replied that no, he just remembered something from the past, and Spirit tried to say that this Empress Ling Lan was still continuing to grow in strength. But Yan covered her mouth so that no one could hear her. People also greeted and asked, "Is this the capital hermit?" Truly, he radiates a divine aura. Xinyao saw that teacher is so beautiful, she wants to always be by his side, even if she has to be a simple maid. The warriors met the Empress before entering the castle, and said that they congratulated her on her victorious return. Ling Lan replied that it was all the merit of great Emperor Wang Yang. Let them quickly prepare the most sumptuous imperial feast for the guest of honor. The Empress suddenly asked why she didn't see the state mentor among the greeters. The servant replied that the state mentor could not come because he had exhausted his strength maintaining the country's protective barrier. Lin Lan interrupted him and asked, why wasn't she informed earlier? Where is the state mentor now? The servant replied that the state mentor had been taken to the Celestial Mechanisms Pavilion. Ian stepped into the conversation and asked His Majesty if they should visit the state tutor first. Lin Lan apologized and replied that she had just lost her temper. He had to see it. The warriors at this time stood by their mentor and said that she couldn't do this to them and couldn't leave them. Ling Lan walked in and told the teacher that her student was late. The teacher replied to her, "How many times can I tell you? In public, she can call her state mentor." Ian looked at her and saw that she was so beautiful but was about to fade away. It was very sad. The teacher said that she was thanking the elder for saving Ling Lan and the entire Great Shang dynasty. Yang replied that it was nothing. Ling Lan was angry and ordered the servants to quickly call a heavenly healer for the state mentor. The teacher replied that she shouldn't. Her condition seems like only the pill of 9 transformations from the heavenly world can help. There was no need to waste energy. The spirit suddenly appeared and said that a person in need of treatment had been discovered. The Lord receives 1 sacred pill of 9 transformations. Ian was surprised after that. After all, the system is able to create karmic bonds. But he wondered, should he keep this 9 transformation pill for himself or save his life now? Yang told the Empress not to be sad. He just had the pill of 9 transformations. And he decided to save a human first. It was a pity to lose such a beautiful woman. Ling Lan said that it was too precious, but she was grateful to great Emperor Wang Yang. The warriors, seeing this, began to say that they were thanking the Supreme Immortal, and the teacher was saved. Ling Lan took the pill in her hands and gave it to her teacher. The girl immediately felt a surge of energy. Ian realized that this 9 transformations pill even had special effects. No wonder it only came from the heavenly world. Ling Lan asked the teacher, did he just break through to a new level? The teacher replied, she thanked the elder for the medicine. Not only was she healed, but she had also broken through to the middle stage of the immortal realm. Yang said it was a trifling matter, not worth thanking. Suddenly, a servant came and warned Her Majesty that the imperial pip was ready. Ling Lan told Emperor Wang Yang that she was asking him to the table. Yang replied that he dared not refuse then. Ian came to the table and realized that he had not yet drunk wine since his transformation. He even wondered how strong it was. But the spirit again said that it was discovered that the Lord was going to drink wine, would immediately obtain the imperial art technique of turning wine vapor into a dragon. Jan was very happy, because now he could not worry about what he ate and drank. Lin Lan suddenly stood up and said that this was the first glass from her and the Celestial Mechanisms Pavilion, thanking great Emperor Wang Yang for the medicine that saved the state mentor. She went on to say that she was raising the second glass on behalf of every subject of the great Shang dynasty, in honor of the great Emperor Wang Yang, and thanking him for saving their dynasty. All the servants and guests listened to the Empress's words, and also all said together that she agreed to drink to great Emperor Wang Yang. Ling Lan continued and said that she was raising the third glass again to great Emperor Wang Yang. Henceforth, he would be the sovereign of their great Shang dynasty. All the elders were shocked and said that it was so sudden. And now the great Shang dynasty would now have 2 emperor-level rulers. Who would dare to underestimate them now? Ling Lan suddenly shouted for them to be quiet. She would tell the state mentor to choose an auspicious day for her and Grand Emperor Wang Yang's wedding. But Qin Yao came over and said that she was reporting to the Empress that this was a serious matter, and there was no hurry. Ling Lan said that she had made a vow to Heavenly Dao to only marry great Emperor Wang Yang. Who was she to object? Qin Yao replied that she was not against their marriage to the patriarch, but her brother demanded that all the ceremonies be observed, and the Dashing dynasty is organizing everything. Wouldn't that show that their spiritual sword sect is neglecting the patriarch? Jan at this time thought, and saw that watching the beauties argue was quite interesting. Not for nothing he had come. The spirit approached him and said that it was discovered that the overlord was preparing for a wedding. A wedding bonus was issued. Jan answered her to shut up. Nothing had been decided yet. What was her hurry? Suddenly, someone came to Ling Lan and said that he had heard that a great person had arrived in the great Shang dynasty. Shui Yue dynasty minister Qi Wen Yuan had specially come to meet him. Ling Lan was surprised and said, "This is Minister Qi Wen Yuan. How did he even end up here in the first place?" She didn't think that they even sent Minister Qi. It seems like the heavens want to ruin their great Shang dynasty. Yang asked, "What kind of person is this Minister Qi Wen Yuan?" Qin Yao replied that the Shui Yue dynasty stands for 1,000 years. Now they have 1 emperor, 2 ministers, and 4 generals, for a total of 7 emperor-level rulers. And this Qi Wen Yuan is one of the 2 ministers, the left minister. Yang said that since he is also only emperor level, why are they panicking so much? Ling Lan replied that this leftist minister Qi Wen Yuan is not scary because of his strength, but because he is the chief strategist of the Shui Yue dynasty, and he is a master of intrigue, unsurpassed in calculation, can destroy or elevate a country with a single thought. Yang asked the system, "What level is this Qi Wen Yuan?" The spirit replied that she was very sorry. The target was not detected in sight. It was impossible to provide information. Yan told her to leave. After all, he would definitely meet this Qi Wen Yuan soon. The spirit replied that it was fine. Suddenly, someone from the street shouted and asked if this great man didn't want to meet him, or thought him unworthy. Ling Lan was frightened and told great Emperor Wang Yang to leave soon, and not to interfere in the affairs of the great Shang dynasty anymore. For today's favor, she would only be able to thank him in the next life. Qin Yao also told His Majesty that there was no way. If he let their wishes slip away, the millions of subjects of the great Shang dynasty would be in a hopeless situation. And the Sui Yue dynasty is better not to mess with. Maybe they will return to the spiritual sword sect. Yang replied that he hadn't even had a couple of drinks before someone came to spoil the celebration. It was intolerable. Yang decided to appeal to His Majesty. But suddenly the servant sat on her knees and said that Sovereign Wang Yang was truly merciful, saving their great Shang dynasty from disaster. The other servants also said that Sovereign Wang Yang is boundlessly virtuous. This is a happiness for the great Shang dynasty and a blessing for the people. Yang suddenly thought and realized that, badly, he was late, and Guling Yue had taken the initiative. Ling Lan said that great Emperor Wang Yang is the honored guest of the Dashang dynasty. How can he force him to stand up for them like this? Yang told the Empress not to be angry. Some leftist minister is not a problem for him. He will be back quickly. Ling Lan replied to him that they had nothing to repay such favor. They could only wait for the victorious return of great Emperor Wang Yang. Qi Wen Yuan stood behind the barrier and said that it seemed like the great Shang dynasty didn't want to take it nicely. Wen Yuan art. Thunder ceremony. Suddenly, Yan appeared and told him nicely to stop. Qi Wen Yuan just stood there and looked at the guy. Qi Wen Yuan asked, "So is he that great Emperor Wang Yang?" The guy replied that he was just a traveling spellcaster. How could he be worthy of left minister Shui Yue's attention? Qi Wen Yuan saw that this person had destroyed Jiang Yunqi's body of law with one blow. But so modest, it seems that he is not an easy opponent. Qi Wen Yuan told Mr. Wang that he was really humble. If he came to their Shui Yue dynasty, his position would not be inferior to his. Yang replied that he is a simple man from the middle of nowhere and is not fit for high positions and wealth. Mr. Qi is also a reasonable man. Let him give him advice. There is no need to spoil the relationship between Shui Yue and Great Sheng. Jing said Empress Ling Lan destroyed 6 states. Too much killing. They only restore justice. Yang replied that although the unification of the 6 states was cruel, but after that there were no more wars, it was a great virtue. Jing said that he can see that Brother Wang is really eloquent. But today, He Qi is acting under orders and must arrest Ling Lan. Yang replied that he respects Mr. Qi as a person. Maybe they will only talk about pleasant things today. Don't spoil the relationship. Jing told him that in the confrontation between the 2 states, cannot avoid fighting. Is there really another way to solve? Yang replied that in a dispute between noblemen, it was not necessary to bear swords. One could win with words. Jing thought about it and said that it was good to talk about defeating him with words. Only then let him not say that he defeated him unfairly. Jing applied his strength and said that they would then decide everything with one contest. If Brother Wang won, he would not pursue Ling Lan. Ian wondered at this moment and thought, why doesn't he follow the normal rules? It's not like he doesn't know how to play Go. The spirit appeared and said that it was discovered that the Overlord was preparing to play Go. AlphaGo activated. Ian told the system to wait and asked, is this the same Yi AlphaGo who played Go on the blue planet? The system replied that it was definitely him, and the latest enhanced version, even with a 3-stone uniform, can defeat the best players in this world. Ian asked with surprise, with a 3-stone shape, so his skills in Go would allow him to defeat anyone in this world. And since Yang said so, he can't refuse such an honor, and making a move gave the Lord a chance. Jing asked Brother Wang, is he really giving him a head start? Ian asked, who said anything about a head start? He's giving 2 stones. Jing asked his brother, is he insulting him? His skill in Go is at least the best in the dynasty, famous in all 8 wastelands. Yang said that the noble husband's words cannot be changed by 4 horses. If Mr. Qi wins, let him do as he wishes. Qi said that if he loses, the heavenly axis ink-patterned sword is his, and he will leave without looking back. The system looked at the board and did everything for the master, showing him all the moves to win. Ian was also convinced that the system was really smart. It looked like he would be able to defeat the enemy. People watched this from afar and asked, is the sovereign going to play with Left Minister Qi? How can he win? But someone in the crowd said that it was Qi who once defeated the 18 top players of the Shui Yue dynasty. His strength is terrifying. Lin Lan told them to stop talking. The sovereign will definitely win. Qin Yao thought that the patriarch also plays Waf Go. What a versatile person he is. Qi saw at this moment that every move he made was brilliant, just unbelievable. But Yang rejoiced and looking at the board saw that indeed, like in the legends, the rout was complete. The system showed him that White's move is 24, and the probability of victory was 39%. Yang thought that even a beginner like him could easily destroy the master. Qing also thought that even though he had a 2-stone advantage, he was at a disadvantage. Yang's strength in Go was truly unfathomable. People asked from below, why is the left minister still not signaling? Had he gotten carried away with the game? But he was answered that Mr. Qi has his own plans. They just need to wait now. Qing was already starting to get angry and wondered why his every move was proving to be predictable. But Yan was thinking about something else, and he wondered why Qing's thoughts were not in play. Had he noticed his hidden preparations? Yang did the winning and said that Mr. Qi lost, and the game is over, and he thanks for playing. Qing couldn't believe it and said, how could it be possible? With a 2-stone forfeit, he still lost. He started spitting blood and said it was impossible. Jan was surprised from him and realized that it was just a game of Go. But Qing couldn't stop and just spat blood. And Yang didn't understand. After all, it was just a game of Go for him. So why be so dramatic? The system appeared and said that it congratulated the Overlord. And through the game, he dealt damage to the enemy's soul. His level dropped to the realm of immortals. Ian asked, why does it have such a weird look? The system replied that she thought she was stuck with a bug. The reward was not dropping out. Yang started laughing and asked, is she trying to kill him with laughter? He told Brother Qi that he thanked him for playing. But everything changed at that moment, and suddenly the old enemies attacked him from behind and used the spear technique of following the stars. But Yang was not afraid and managed to use the yin-yang heaven guardian art. The enemy said that he was indeed protected by a shell, and ordered Sun to come in from the other side. Tae replied that he understood the order, and even apologized to Yang-san, and they both attacked him from both sides. Yang said that, since they were seeking death, let them not blame him further for being rude, and used Yin-Yang's Heaven Guardian art to return the Heaven Guardian. The enemy was greatly surprised at this moment, and said that it was impossible. Chi suddenly ordered the two of them to retreat. Chi said that just now he was too arrogant, and thanks Mr. Wang for his leniency and training. They will keep the promise. Yang replied that he wished them a happy journey and would not see them off. The warrior asked the left minister why he had not intervened then to spare their brother from this misfortune. Chi replied that Yang was unfathomable. His skill in playing Go might have already touched the realm of the way of Go. The warrior got angry and started yelling, "What's so special about playing Go?" Chi replied that maybe the level of a heavenly saint. He thinks it's a joke. The warrior told the celestial saint that it couldn't be. Chi replied that he would return and advise the sovereign not to target the Great Shang Kingdom anymore. Otherwise, the consequences would be unthinkable. The system suddenly told the host that she was about to appear. Jan, on the contrary, thought, why did she have that expression like she was constipated? Was she about to give out something big? Suddenly, the system pointed and said loudly, "It had finally formed." Ian asked, "What kind of shard is that? It looks unremarkable." The system replied that it was a heavenly path shard. No talented cultivator could become a heavenly saint without comprehending the heaven's path shard. Ian took it in his hands, and suddenly something incredible happened. The energy covered his body completely, but some old man who was in the cave also felt it. He immediately said it was a flow of energy. Could it be a fragment of the heavenly path? The great confrontation hadn't started yet, so how could it appear? All the elders who were at a high level felt this, and said that a sliver of the heavenly path had appeared to the world, and it looked like troubled times were about to come. But suddenly, the two guys in the sky also felt it. The guy asked if he was the one who arranged the appearance of the shard of the Skyway. The ally replied, "The shard of the heavenly path is the key to gaining holiness. How could he give it away?" Ian was immediately transported to another planet. The system told the host that it was a celestial altar in his mind. Have him place the shard in the center circle, and it will activate the power of the heavenly path. Yan used all his strength to move the shard to its place, and after that, a strong stream suddenly appeared and headed towards the sky. And the system immediately said that the third-level Celestial Emperor had advanced to the fourth-level Celestial Emperor, and the path of the ninth-level Go ninth-level Guardian. Yan was surprised and realized that not only had his level increased, but he had also obtained a new celestial stage. The system said the ninth-step Keeper received by black and white 3 chips, each chip giving a unique opportunity. Yan asked, "Gaining opportunities through chips. Is it external or internal influence? Let him explain lucidly." The system responded that it was neither external nor internal. He is now the party host and can use these chips to help or hinder others. Ian asked, leading the party, "But it sounds kind of suggestive." The system replied that the party master uses the sky as a board, people as chips. Everything in the world is part of the party. Everything is only under his control. Ian stopped her and ordered her without pathos. Did he have any other abilities? The system replied that for now he could neutralize the pressure of opponents of the same level and remove the suppression of higher beings to the Heavenly Emperor level. Ian didn't like it and said that the hero of the novels always kills enemies superior to them, which is not the same thing at all. Lin Lan met him immediately and said that she didn't think his husband's skill in Go was so high. She was amazed. Yang replied that Chi, having lost in the party, broken spiritually, his level had fallen to that of an immortal king, and he would not soon bother Great Shang's realm. The warriors greeted him too, and all shouted together that they were saluting the sovereign. Ling Lan told them to hurry up and bring wine and honor the sovereign after another victory. But Yan decided to use a technique to renew the barrier and make it even stronger, and immediately applied the technique. The shell covered the place with yellow lightning. The system said that it congratulated the host for raising the level of the protective national mainland and establishing communication. And the system award is the Holy Sword of the 9 Heavenly Trials. The servant asked, "What's going on? Why does the protective national formation look like this?" Ian also watched, and saw that it was as if the white chips were being used differently. He even wondered if people could be manipulated. He began to imagine Lin Lan calling him husband, and saying that she felt so uncomfortable in those clothes. Ian told her to calm down. He had just improved the national defense a bit. And now, unless a supreme being personally intervened, this defense would repel any external threat. Jin Yao realized that the national defense had really strengthened, and this Wang Yang was truly inscrutable, and said that the sovereign has already reached the level of a supreme being. At this time in the Yue clan, the head said that even the left minister, who was known for his strategic foresight, sometimes made mistakes. A servant suddenly came and said that the female ruler Ling Lan hired a certain Wang Yang, whose strength is unfathomable, and he hopes the sovereign will stop acting against the kingdom of Great Sheng. Sovereign Yun got angry and started shouting that even the small kingdom of Great Sheng couldn't be defeated. They were all idlers, and let them call the right minister, and he should raise their kingdom to the ground. The servant told the sovereign that now was the critical moment of the northern campaign. It was impossible to ruin the national cause because of a moment's anger. Yun replied that if they didn't capture Ling Lan, he would declare a general mobilization and sweep the kingdom to the ground. The warriors at this time said that the sovereign is wise and powerful. With one batch, he frightened the strong enemies, and he is invincible, crushed the military might of the Yue kingdom. A servant suddenly approached the sovereign and Ling Lan and said that she had just calculated 5 days from now would be an auspicious day for the wedding. She suggested that they start preparing for the wedding right now. Ling Lan asked the state councilor if she thought she was in too much of a hurry. Such an important event should be discussed with the sovereign first. Ian at this moment realized that one was playing red, the other was playing white. Did he even have any choice left? Yang said this wedding. Should he go back to the spiritual sword sect to prepare, he asked. Lin Lan replied to him that all the wedding troubles could be entrusted to the counselor. He had nothing to worry about. Jin Yao also entered the conversation and told the advisor that even if the Great Sheng Kingdom takes over the organization, the sect leader should return and prepare gifts and a welcoming ceremony. Ling Lan suddenly stood up and said that Madame Liu's words were correct. The sovereign had recently said that this was an event, and for the spiritual sword sect, one should really make good preparations. But she's a little worried that there are different household traditions between the spiritual sword sect and their kingdom. Would they create a conflict? The counselor replied that since the sovereign was heading to the spirit sword sect, maybe he would let her escort them. And she, as the kingdom counselor of the Great Sheng Kingdom, is most familiar with wedding ceremonies. Ian realized that this was the first time he was getting married. Even after rebirth, he hadn't studied this. So let a professional handle it. And in that case, he said that the state counselor would go with him. Before leaving, Ling Lan told the sovereign that she missed him so much, and she wanted to go with him to the spirit sword sect. Yan laughed and replied, "What's there to be sad about? She will take her back to her place in 5 days." Lin Lan said that she wasn't really ready yet. The sovereign asked me what I wasn't ready for. To be his bride or to bear him a child? Lin Lan got angry and shouted after him that he was nasty and the time was late. It was time for them to leave. On the way, the counselor was shocked and said that he had a very luxurious chariot, and the sovereign is truly divine, and even a supreme being doesn't have such a magnificent chariot. So who is this Wang Yang, she thought. The counselor turned to Sovereign Wang and asked his permission to inquire what holy cloister he was from. Jan turned to the system and asked what holy abodes existed in this world. The system replied to the host that he had come to the right place. There are 10 holy abodes in this world: Tai Yi, Xuan Tian, Lu Yuan. Yan was tired of listening and told her to shut up. After all, messing with these holy dwellers would mean causing a lot of trouble. It was better to say that he was a traveling cultivator. Yang made up his mind and said that he was just an ordinary traveling cultivator, having never been to any of the great holy abodes. The counselor replied that she hadn't expected that the sovereign was a traveling cultivator. What incredible talent and luck he had. The system suddenly started screaming that it was informing the host that the large spiritual gatebolt was under powerful attack. Ian realized and thought at once, who were these insolent men who had attacked while he was away? The counselor asked the sovereign what was wrong with him. Yan replied that nothing. It was just that their spiritual sword sect had encountered a bit of trouble. The enemies were attacking the barrier at this time and said that it was very strange. The guard bolt was completely unyielding. The chief thought that the spiritual sword sect had always been stealthy, but has such a powerful security bolt. But today, they would definitely take possession of it. The spirit sword sect's spiritual sword sect chief looked at all of this and asked, Would the security bolt not be able to withstand it? This bolt was personally set by the ancestor. It wouldn't be so easy to break. Yang went down at once and saw that his warriors were already standing at the ready. But one of the warriors said that the ancestor had returned. Yan asked, "What's going on here?" The main man replied that those few cultivators were just passing by, but for some reason, they had encroached on their guard bolt. Qin Yao shouted that this was insolence and asked which sect dared to attack their spiritual sword sect. Yan realized at once that they had chosen this very time to come to die. He's going to get married by finishing off those stray dogs. Ian jumped up into the sky and shouted for them to take care of the state councilor. He would be back soon. Yan stepped outside the barrier and asked, where did these dogs who dared to rampage in his spiritual sword sect come from? The warrior replied that they are the ones who are insignificant morons daring to insult their sect of wind and clouds. And they seem to be looking for death. Let him go and tell his abbot to issue a security bolt immediately, or else when the bolt falls, there will be no stone left unturned from the sect. Ian smiled and replied that it looked like they were plotting plunder and murder. Their words just made him laugh. He realized that these creatures were so carrying the breath of cannon fodder, clearly come to die. The chief enemy said that their little spiritual sword sect wasn't worthy of such a bolt. Even if they didn't take it, there would be others. Let them obediently hand it over and they would probably let them live. Ian asked the system to help him determine the level of these minions, but the system replied that one was at the level of a second-stage Great Emperor, two were at the peak of the Immortal King level, and one was at the highest level of an immortal. Ian thought that they were pure cannon fodder, and they were getting cocky in front of him. But he had an unfinished holy sword, and now he would practice on them. The system immediately said that it was detected that the master was studying the sword, and was immediately rewarded with perfecting it. And it's also found that the master's study of the sword is immediately rewarded with perfection. Yang picked up his big sword and told his enemies to get out of here in 10 breaths, or he would slaughter everyone. The enemy told him that their former abbot bowed low and called him mentor when he met him. He didn't expect that in 200 years the spiritual sword sect had such an impudent person. One of the people involved said to the teacher, "Why be ceremonious with him? We should immediately mutilate and destroy the spiritual sword sect." Ian didn't let him talk to him like that, and taking his sword he released all the energy into it and attacked. But the enemy tried to repel this sword attack but failed. And lastly, just tried to address the teacher and completely vaporized. The enemy was surprised at this and realized that his disciple was gone. And this guy turned out to be strong. The enemy told the guy that he dared to attack their wind and cloud sect. But Yang retorted that they had offended the spirit sword sect, which was already unforgivable. And now they were behaving so vilely and were seeking death themselves. The teacher was very angry with him and told Yang that he had killed his disciple. Today, the true spirit of the spiritual gate would destroy his entire spiritual sword sect. The teacher waved his sword, and the green light of his sword appeared. Yang asked, "He will destroy what?" "Good then, he will guide him straight to the underworld so they will meet." The enemy told his brother at the time of the attack to take it easy. "This guy is at least a celestial emperor. We must proceed with caution." The teacher replied to his brother to quickly use the three-dimensional, limitless formation to capture and kill him, avenging their poor disciple. The master called the sun, moon, and stars, heaven, earth, and man. And the three elements must unite. Limitless formation, let it rise. Yan waited at this time and immediately ascended from a fourth-stage heavenly emperor to a first-stage immortal king. The teacher got mad and called the guy a puppy and told him to just die. Ian asked, did they think they could suppress his cultivation with this pathetic formation? How naive are they all? Ian simply raised his sword into the sky and used the destruction technique. The force immediately covered all the enemies with his strong magic, and his level, from a first-stage immortal king, rose to a fourth-stage heavenly emperor. The enemy told his brother that his level had returned, so what should they do? The teacher realized that this was impossible unless he had reached the level of a supreme being. Otherwise, there was no such thing. The teacher told him not to panic. The three-dimensional, limitless formation could raise their level. He had ordered the others to attack together now, and he didn't believe that 3 at the heavenly emperor level wouldn't be able to handle this brat. The teacher immediately attacked and used the heavenly sword floating in the clouds. The second brother used the earthly sword that destroys mountains, and the third used the wind sword that destroys the soul. Ian looked down at them and said he was kind of tickled. Didn't they have breakfast or something? The teacher saw that their attacks did nothing to him and said that it was impossible. Yan jumped into the air and replied that he had given them a chance, but they didn't take it. Then it was his turn. The teacher shouted to the brothers to be careful now and quickly retreated, but it was too late. Yang was ruthless about such a thing and chopped the teacher with his sword. The second brother saw that the older brother had been destroyed and began to shout. But Yang came up behind him and told him not to make a fuss. Now he would send him after his brother. Ian did not speak to him further and thrust his fire sword into his chest and tore him apart. The teacher was greatly surprised and realized that this guy was too strong, and now he had to escape. And apologizing for his brother, he promised that he would avenge him later. Yang said that this old man turned out to be quite good and told him that he would travel with him. Ian didn't give him a chance to even escape and used fire magic and caught the teacher. Yang told the system to activate the spiritual essence dispersal symbol. The jet of fire passed through this teacher's body and gave him no chance at all to reflect it. The system told the teacher that it had detected a rapidly departing soul and asked if it needed to be destroyed. Yan replied to her not to worry, just a little bit of him having fun. But this teacher's spirit remained and told the spiritual sword sect to get ready. Yang went down to the sect and all the warriors said greeting their ancestor. Jin Yao asked him which sect they were from. Yan replied that he had heard from the Wind and Cloud sect everyone had been killed. The chief was surprised and asked, "The Wind and Cloud sect? But what should they do now?" Ian asked, "What's the big deal? Do they really have a supreme being?" The counselor replied to the sovereign that the abbot of the Wind and Cloud sect was a strong celestial emperor, but behind them is a cloud recluse sect with several supreme beings. Yang said that the Wind and Cloud sect has a heavenly emperor, and behind it is the standing hidden sect of supreme beings, and their spiritual sword sect only has a unified period. The chief scratched the back of his head and told the sovereign that they had him, and an honorable one at that. The counselor suddenly decided to enter the conversation and said that the head of Liu, after the wedding, the sovereign would often be in the capital, accompanying the sovereign. The main one was greatly surprised by her words and didn't even hesitate to ask what their sect meant. Yang decided and said that they would first call a sect meeting and discuss the wedding. The servants replied to the ancestor that the order would be obeyed. The next day, people began to chatter and say that their ancestor had come out of the bolt. The female ruler of the great Shang herself came running to him. One can even envy him, but someone in the crowd told him to be a little quieter, for if the elders heard, they would deal with him. But the rest of it somehow said the ancestor is some youngster, and for some reason it seems familiar, and it's Wang Yang from the backyard. Ian appeared in front of them like a true ancestor and showed all the power he was capable of. People said it couldn't be. Yan didn't take long to show himself and descended into the arena. People said that this was the power of the heavenly emperor. The emperor told everyone that in 5 days he will marry the ruler of the great Shang kingdom, and asks everyone to work hard these days and help the state councilor prepare the spirit sword sect. The workers were very upset, and one of them said they would be forced to work again. But at the end of the month, they have an appraisal, which is torture for them. One of the workers told the ancestor that they would do their best to organize his wedding. Yang thought and said that after his wedding, every disciple, regardless of position, would receive 3 purifying and connecting pills. Every elder would receive 3 enlightenment pills, and then he would personally select and train the most talented. The chief stood up and replied that they thanked the ancestor for his generosity and willingness to teach. From now on, he would be the supreme mentor of their sect. The chief saw that no one was moving and asked the workers what they stood up. Let them rather thank the supreme mentor. All the workers said in chorus that they thanked the supreme mentor for the favor. But the chief couldn't help but be happy and raised his hands to the sky and shouted, "May the spirit sword sect be reborn." Jan asked the system if it could prepare all these awards. The system replied that, no problem, he could rely on her. Sovereign Yue told his man that he had restored his body, but the level would definitely no longer return. The warrior replied to the abbot that the spiritual sword sect had humiliated them so much by killing the 5th and 7th brothers. If they did not take revenge, he would not consider himself a human being. Yue thought and explained that even the 3-dimensional limitless formation couldn't overpower him. His level seemed to be already a supreme being. The warrior asked, would the Wind and Cloud sect really swallow this offense? Yue replied that this guy couldn't stay alive, and he should also go to the Cloud Hidden sect. Let them strike and destroy the Spirit Sword sect. The warrior rejoiced and began to thank the abbot for justice for the 5th and 7th brothers. Elder Bai took charge of the workers and told them to move faster, and the roots of the trees should be trimmed. The other workers at the time of decorating asked Mr. G if he would be satisfied with it. Mr. G replied that it was too crooked. Let them move that lantern. Qin Yao, on the contrary, said that it was the grand wedding of the supreme master of the 2 sects. Everything had to be perfect. The maidservants replied to the mistress that they understood. But suddenly, the counselor came and said, "Here is the list of dowry from the kingdom of Great Sheng." The chief looked at the list and realized that these gifts were too expensive. But their spiritual sword sect won't be able to prepare a comparable dowry. The counselor told him not to worry. The sovereign and the sovereign lady love each other. A symbolic dowry would be sufficient. At this time, Ian walked by them and said that his wedding couldn't be so frivolous. And even if their spiritual sword sect is not rich, they cannot offend the Great Sheng realm. The counselor turned around and replied to the sovereign that she was too bold and should not have said such words. Yan told her that the dowry was already prepared. He would not allow his future wife to be treated badly. The counselor took the list, and opening it was greatly surprised. She told the sovereign at once that he was so kind to their sovereign. The chief realized that it was most of these treasures that they were unfamiliar with. When did their spiritual sword sect become so rich? The system immediately appeared and asked the master, "Was the dowry prepared well?" Yan replied that this time he was really grateful to her. She was very helpful. The system didn't procrastinate long and said that these presents were nothing, and the best was prepared for tomorrow. After 3 days, the worker said that the way to the Great Sheng Kingdom was very far, so how would they get there? But the manager told him to take his time. The clan head must have already planned everything. The counselor asked the Lord why the wedding cortege had not arrived yet. Jan answered her not to worry. They were on their way. Jan did not waste much time and showed his transportation, and even everyone saw this beauty. The system told the host that it was an impressive wedding motorcade. Yan replied that it was the most elite class. The counselor couldn't even say a word from what she saw, but she said out loud, "How could there be so many imperial chariots with 6 dragons?" Ian told the state mentor that the hour had come and it was time to depart. As he took off, everyone began to see him off. Lin Lan had already prepared her outfit for the wedding and was beginning to worry where her lord had disappeared to. Suddenly, the servants shouted that the lord had arrived. Ling Lan was surprised and asked if he had come for the bride, but she began to panic violently and almost took off her clothes. But the maid told the sovereign that she could not yet lift the veil. Seeing her, Ian didn't even expect that after his transmigration, he would be able to marry such a lovely girl. And it wasn't for nothing that he had gotten here. Yang approached her and said that the hour had come, and would she agree to walk hand in hand with him for life. Ling Lan immediately replied that she agreed. Yang lifted her veil, and seeing her face, Ling Lan said he was her husband. But the guy was already drooling over her beauty. People started shouting and congratulating the union of Lord and Sovereign, and wishing the Lord and Sovereign eternal love and harmony. Once outside, Yang called for his transportation vehicle. Ling Lan was speechless when she saw this. Ian took her in his arms and said they would just get in the carriage and it's not even bedroom yet. What's to worry about? Ling Lan asked him, is he laughing at her? But suddenly something happened, and the sky became dark. Ian saw it at once and froze. The counselor and Qin Yao also saw it and asked, "What is this?" Ling Lan asked her husband, "Are these really people from the Wind and Cloud sect?" Ian thought about it and replied that they knew how to choose the moment. He told his beloved not to worry, he would be back in no time. New enemies came and realized that they had failed to resist the sovereign and were now in a difficult position. But the other enemies stood behind the barrier and struck with their own strength to destroy it. But Yunqi said that this shell was even harder this time than last time. It even pissed him off. Qi turned to Sovereign Wang Yang and said that he hoped everything was fine. But the sovereign replied to tell him to stop pretending. Yang told Qi that he dared to break the agreement. This is the 3rd time he has disturbed Great Sheng's kingdom. But behind Qi, the rest of the warriors who had already participated in the battle earlier but lost suddenly rushed in. Qi said that the emperor's will is adamant, and if Wang gives up Empress Ling Lan, he is willing to make any compensation. Ian smiled and asked, "What other compensation is there?" Today is his wedding day with the Empress. He doesn't want to shed blood, and since the wind and cloud sect is so persistent, none of them will leave alive today. Qi asked Madame Xin to let her keep him busy with him. Xin replied that yes, let him act on it. Qi immediately told the 3 generals to help him to build a battle order. Qi cast a spell and summoned the power of the 4 elements and ordered them to obey his call. And now the formation must begin. All the elements gathered in one place and surrounded Mr. Yang from different sides. Mr. Wang was not surprised and said that he couldn't believe that all the dragons, tigers, birds, and turtles had gathered. But to him, they are nothing more than snakes, cats, chickens, and frogs. Jan said that now he would watch them tear apart this little fighting order. Yan realized that if one were to take away the qi guiding the formation, the entire formation could be destroyed. Yang didn't get distracted by the others and picked up his sword and aimed his fire attack at Qi. Qi saw this and realized that he was about to get a big one, and the opponent was too strong. He managed to shout to the others to help him. All the elements heard the shouts of the main Qi, and each one used their strongest attack against Yang. The streams of energy were aimed at one place, and after the explosion, they saw that no one was there. But Qi was already injured and realized that his opponent had an overbearing sword technique, and if it wasn't for the defense of the array, he would have just died on the spot. Yan also realized that this magic array was really strange. The heaven-shattering strike should have destroyed the qi. Rays of energy at this moment descended over the sect. Ling Lan saw his husband fighting for her honor, but Ling Lan ordered them to bring her sword. She would go to help the head of state destroy the array. The counselor replied that it couldn't be done. This magical array of 4 demon annihilation symbols was created by the heavenly mystery sacred abode. It is incredibly complex, but unless she had the power of a supreme being, she could only destroy it from within. Ling Lan started to panic and asked, should they really sit back and watch the head of state being humiliated by people from the Zhuanyue dynasty? The counselor replied to Her Majesty not to worry. Master Wang has unfathomable strength and fundamentals. He will definitely find a way to destroy this array. Yang was in thought at this moment and saw that the qi wounds had healed so quickly. This magically array really has its secrets, and it looks like he will have to put in some extra effort. But he did not become discouraged and applied the sword of the 9 catastrophes of celestial evolution, the catastrophe of reincarnation, and said that he would now see how he would deal with this blow. Energy passed between the elements and affected them, but Qi told him that he didn't dare to be so arrogant, and using his energy he tried to attack Yang from the sky so he couldn't dodge. But Yan wasn't even confused and simply set his legendary sword up for his attack. He realized that he would have to think of another way to destroy the array. The system told the host not to worry. It had already figured out a way for him to destroy the array. But suddenly the tiger claws suddenly appeared, but Yan used his barrier and said that he was curious to see what kind of method she had prepared. The system replied that it had detected the master's strong desire to destroy the array and had specially rewarded him with the heavenly artifact Divine Eye. She showed it to him and told him to take action. Yang took it all in and thought it was Sun Wukong's fiery eye, but it turned out to be a heavenly eye like Yang Jian's. The master said that's great, and now he's going to see where this turtle has a weak spot. Yang analyzed all the elements and looked closely and said that he had found it, and immediately used the 9 catastrophes heavenly evolution sword, Heavenly Palace Cut. Everyone was surprised by such a flow of energy and couldn't even believe that this guy was capable of such a thing. Yun Qi saw that his imperial level, the 2nd step, and had dropped to the middle level of the King of Immortals. He shouted to Yan that he was a rascal and asked what was happening to his level. Ian was suddenly behind him and thankful that even before he died he thought of him that way. Ian didn't continue to talk to him any further and stuck his sword into his chest and swept through with all his speed. He didn't stop at one of them and went over the others without giving them a chance to live. Qi was badly injured and thought that this was the true strength of that very Wang Yang. But this is unbelievable. He immediately felt that he had descended to the initial level of the Emperor level. Yang said, okay, then now only Qi was left. He immediately used the sword of the 9 disasters of celestial evolution. But suddenly, Madame Xin appeared in front of his attack and repelled his attack with ease. Xin said that she will not allow the left minister to be killed. Yang realized that this right minister Xin was really strong. She would calmly block his sword strike of the 9 heaven evolution catastrophe sword. He even wondered, what level is her strength? The system asked the host, didn't he get a divine eye? he could use it to determine the enemy's level. Ian immediately remembered his abilities, and applying the analysis on her stripped her casually down to her underwear. Ian lost his vision from what he saw, and realized that pink, such a strong contrast. The system told the host he was misusing it. That's the function of X-ray vision. Sin became very angry after this, and shouted that since he was peeping at others, then let him die, and used her attack. Ian noticed that she could still be shy. He thought she was just a doll. But Shin did not speak to him further and used her spear to strike. But Yang was able to put his sword in the air and deflect it. Their strengths were unequal. Shin was at the Imperial level, the 8th step, and Yang was only at the 4th step. Sin suddenly flew into the air and unfurled her spear above her head to attack once more. Picking her moment, she applied the star spear, the moon disappearing, the star falling. Ian realized she was stronger than he was, and simply set his sword above his head to soothe the pain. He realized that the strength of an Emperor level 8th stage was truly awe-inspiring, and it looked like one had to be careful. Qi was by his side at this time, and told him to better surrender. Right Minister Shin has the power to destroy an entire state. He can't defeat her. Ian was angry and told him to shut up, and since when does a defeated person dare to point, and attacked him with the sword of the 9 catastrophes of celestial evolution, the cut of the heavenly palace. Qi tried to repel his attack, but his level was lower than last time and was badly injured. But Jin didn't leave him a chance and immediately attacked at an inopportune moment for Yang. But Yan was faster than her spear and attack, and immediately took a step back, so she missed. But Shin didn't waste her time and immediately applied the star spear star attacking moon. Yan was greatly surprised at such a tempting attack, because her body had become so flexible. Is it really just a doll, he thought? The system suddenly decided to help his master, and told him that the spear was almost at his head. Ian smiled as he repelled the attack and realized that he had almost been caught because he had been distracted by her figure. Yang said that the strength of the 8th step of the Emperor level is really complicated, but it's interesting. The system notified the host that it could use a secret technique to immediately upgrade him to a supreme being. Ian realized that if he used the golden finger, the game would become uninteresting. Let him have some fun. The system asked him, didn't he enjoy just destroying everyone in his path? Yan suddenly remembered and replied that he remembered that he had accumulated a lot of merit points. Could they be used now, he asked? The system responded that it had now detected the host's intention to convert merit points. The system activated his goggles and said his reward-bound technique of recording the holy path of virtue. Ian thought it was great, because finally his virtue points could be of use. He immediately put the practice to use. The system began to congratulate the master for mastering the sacred technique of recording the holy path of virtue, and the level of a 9th rank emperor in the virtue body had been reached. Yan opened his arms and spurted out his energy. After all, his virtue body had reached the 9th ranked emperor. The system explained that he had 4 ranks and his own cultivation level transformed into the body of a 9th rank virtue emperor. And the master's strength was already on par with the supreme. Yang suddenly said, now we can have a little fun with the Zhuanyue dynasty's right minister. Xin became very curious and asked him, why did he suddenly become stronger in the moment? Ian asked, and how much stronger? Let her come over and check it out for herself then. Xin was further angered by this and asked him, is he looking for death? And applied her stream of star spear meteor fall. Ian thought it was a mockery and asked how could a firefly compete with the radiance of the sun and moon. He didn't play with it and used the Heavenly 9 disaster sword to wander independently. Xin couldn't handle this strong attack and lost her spear at the moment of impact, and Yang caught her. The system immediately said that it didn't expect it to be a sacred spear, but due to the damage, its strength was only at the level of an immortal's artifact. This spear had a treasure rank division, was ordinary, rare, spiritual, immortal, imperial, sacred, and heavenly. Xin told him to give her back the spear, but Yang told her that good children are not allowed to swing weapons, and for now, he'll keep it safe. Xin got angry at all this and said that he was a rascal. She threw her arms around him and screamed at him to give it back. Jan wondered and thought, what had happened to her? She's acting like a child. Was her mind a sword subordinate? But it doesn't matter anymore. She needs to be subdued first. Ian used his fiery fist and delivered a punch to her stomach to make her come to her senses a bit. The system was disappointed in the host and said he had no pity for the beauties at all, treating them so cruelly. Yang replied to her that it's not cruel. She's in the 8th stage of the Great Emperor, and stop talking and let him figure out how to tie her up. The system rejoiced and congratulated the host for defeating the ancient martial spirit, and he receives a rope that binds immortals and another sacred technique. Jan saw the item and said that the rope binding immortals is a useful thing. But why is this sacred technique so mysterious? The system smiled and replied to the host that the system always picks the best fit for him. She gave him a book called Inflatable Doll Maintenance and Repair. Jan suddenly became angry and asked, how did it even pass inspection? The system replied that it was just nothing and let the master not worry about it. And applying the technique, changed it to Tianshu's puppet control techniques. Jan looked at it and said, that's better, even though it sounds a bit too lofty. Suddenly, Qi turned to him and told him to wait. He immediately said that Madame Xin is the most important minister of the Xuanyue dynasty, and now he's asking him not to take her away. He's willing to die in Madame's place. Yan turned around and asked with surprise, His miserable life is better let it serve to send a message to Emperor Xuanyue. Let him thank him for such a wedding gift. And if he dares to attack again, he will wipe the Xuanyue dynasty off the face of the earth. And also have him tell that bastard Emperor Xuanyue that he will soon destroy his dynasty himself. Let him get ready and clean his neck. Qi accepted all his words and said that he would pass everything on. Yang came to his wife after his battle. Ling Lan was very scared and asked him, was he not injured after this fight? She was so much worried. The counselor replied to her that the sovereign had just crushed his enemies. He was fine. Yang did not feel sorry for Jin and threw her to the ground. Qin Yao wanted to say something, but he interrupted her and said, this is the right minister of the Xuanyue dynasty. She has been defeated, is now a prisoner. Jin screamed and called his name, but still begged him to let her go. But Yang used his strength and sealed her mouth. Ian said that he had already suppressed her power to the 5th rank of Immortal King, and for now, they would lock her up somewhere and he would handle it from there. Suddenly a servant came up and asked the sovereign to entrust her to her. Yan turned to his wife and suggested that it would be better to set off. One must not be late for the wedding ceremony. Lin Lan was very happy and replied to her husband that she relied on him completely. The elder at this time was telling Mr. Lu to congratulate him, and he didn't expect that their spiritual sword sect had such a powerful master of the level of a great emperor. This is even impressive. Mr. Lu replied that it's not that much better. Their great ancient pavilion has lords of emperors too, after all. And usually they don't even look in their direction. And today, they even sent representatives to the banquet. The elder said, not only that, even the Heavenly Turquoise Palace, the Junhua sect, and the Nine Colors sect had sent their people. Mr. Liu was supportive and replied that it looked like the spiritual sword sect was about to ascend and stop being a third-rate sect of the Eastern continent. The elder also continued that, with such a great mentor's strength, he thought that they might very well be among the first-ranked sects. But suddenly the chief turned around and asked them, what are they babbling about? Have them quickly meet the guests. He can't cope here anymore. But some warriors were saying in another sect that the Spirit Sword sect did have amazing luck. Who would have thought that the Empress of Great Sheng would agree to marry their representative? But otherwise, how else does their supreme mentor possess some special skill to cover girls? But the elder sitting at the table said that they are like a pacifier and an Alphonse. He must be living off the light of a rich lady. And this empress is probably also scary as the night. The warriors thought it was a mockery and started laughing, but the youngest boy who stood behind them didn't like it. The boy felt that this brash person dared to insult the spiritual sword sect. But suddenly, Guy put his hand in front of him and told Zixuan to stop. After all, this man is a master of the level of a great emperor from the Golden Gate Palace. There's no need to make him angry. The chief suddenly started saying that the young people had arrived home. But everyone was so surprised and asked, this unearthly, beautiful empress? Everyone started envying Yan and saying that the spiritual sword sect had drawn luck if such a woman came to them on her own. Qin Yao thought at this moment that the supreme mentor and the empress were indeed a perfect match, and it's not for them to discuss it. The warriors were also looking at them with their mouths open, thinking, is this girl really the Empress of Great Sheng? This guy's luck was not bad. But suddenly, a guy came out in front of them and said that he didn't expect that the Empress of Great Sheng would turn out to be so beautiful. Let her leave this Alphonse and marry him. Ling Lan looked at him menacingly and said that today was her brother's great day with the sovereign. She does not wish to cause a scandal. The guy started laughing and replied that he just loves such stroppy beauties. If she agreed to him, he would help her deal with the manhwa dynasty. Behind him, after all, is the legendary Golden Gate Palace. The rest of the warriors also started telling her to give in better to the Sati-san. He is known as the nobleman of the eastern continent, and his father has long since reached the level of supreme and enjoys influence even in the Wenyuan shrine. Yang didn't bitch about it and said that he didn't care about his golden or silver gate palace. But today, he will die. The guy didn't take it into consideration and asked, "The spiritual sword sect dares to speak so boldly to him, but it seems like the Lord has forgotten what death is. But they can duel. Whoever wins will be the groom." People were surprised at such words and started saying that they haven't seen such hot weddings for a long time. I wonder even how it will end. They had already started betting and wagering. One of them said he was betting 80,000 spirit stones on Mr. Saito's victory. Yang did an analysis on him and saw that he was a third-step great emperor, and now he's just going to kill him. He told the guy that since he was so raring to go to the other side of the world, he would help him with that. Immediately after these words, they went outside to do battle. Situ told the Lord that he probably has no idea what treasures the great sects have, and now he holds the sacred artifact of the moon illusion flute. Ian replied that he had not expected the Golden Gate Palace to be so generous, and thanked him for such a generous gift for his wedding. Saito began to panic and asked, "What other gift?" "It's his life artifact." Ian looked at him with a strange look and asked, "A life artifact? But if he killed it, they would no longer be his." Situ regarded this as an insult and immediately decided to play his flute, and applied the ancient song of the 5 perfections to the dragon's roar of the sea. The fans immediately covered their ears and shouted that this flute sound, and it was suppressing the mind. "And it's so painful to hear, let someone finish them off." But Saito looked at his opponent and saw that it was unbelievable. With the reinforcement of the moon illusion flute, the Dage Supreme would not be able to resist. John raised his sword to the sky at once and asked him what he was playing. Was he playing a funeral tune to himself? He made it so that this opponent would simply shut up at one go and used his 9 calamities heavenly evolution sword. Saito felt that the Lord's strength was very strong, but he could not hold back this attack and was badly injured. The warriors began to ask after this attack, "Situ, was he defeated by a single blow?" After all, he was the son of the head of the Golden Gate Palace. Yan came out of the dust and said that whoever dared to make a mess again today would share his fate. The warriors looked at all of this with naive and hurt faces and saw that it was too impertinent. After all, this was the young master from the Golden Gate Palace. They had thought of just coming and eating, and here this happened. The man in charge walked over to them and told them not to worry. It was just nothing. And now they could go on with the wedding and drink and be merry. The chief saw that it was all because of that stupid Saito, and found no one better than their supreme mentor. And after such an incident, the spiritual Than sect finally ruined their relationship with the Golden Gate Palace. The chief and all the other guests walked into the hall and said that the ceremony is about to begin. The bride and groom enter the hall. Ian still couldn't come to his senses and didn't expect that he would actually get married after his rebirth, and to such a beautiful woman too. And now, on this wonderful day, he makes a vow to himself that he will never let the Empress down. Jinyao went out to them and said that they give the first bow to heaven and earth, and the second bow she decided, but suddenly saw that for the parents of the upper tutor was not here, and the teacher of the Empress was also not invited, so it was not to begin. But she did so, and immediately went to the third bow of the conjugal. Now they could go to the bedchamber. The chief and the others were shocked at such words and started laughing. Jinyao saw this and said, "What's so funny? Why didn't they come to lead the ceremony?" Yang took his wife's hand and motioned for her to go to the chambers. Ling Lan simply couldn't refuse him and went together with her husband. Yan modestly approached her in the room and decided to talk, but Ling Lan said that the state counselor had long told her what they do on the wedding night. The counselor told the sovereign in advance that everything had already been prepared. Yan was not surprised and realized that even this had been thought out. The counselor is truly a pillar of the great Sheng. Lin Lan lay down on the bed and prepared to receive her husband. She asked him what else he was waiting for. Yan just ripped his clothes out of himself and screamed at his wife that she couldn't contain herself any longer. The system stood nearby at this time and said it was too exciting, but they covered themselves with a blanket, and he asked them to keep her covered. Isn't this the most exciting beginning? Jan smacked her upside the head and replied that a wedding night is no place for children. Let her get out of here. The system started to get angry and replied, "What other place are children? It will just check if the task is completed." But footsteps suddenly passed near the room, and the sect warrior decided to sneak up and hear everything. But on the way, he met the head of the sect and asked him why he was also here. The head answered him to keep quiet. After all, the first wedding night of a great emperor is a rare event that happens once every 10,000 years. And if you take this chance, it might help the cultivation break through. The warrior replied, "So that's how it is. The sect leader really is a visionary." But suddenly Qin Yao came out in front of them and said that it turns out all of them, disguised as practicing, had come to peek at someone else's wedding night. The head replied to his sister that it was not what she thought. The boy also suggested to his younger sister that they should talk things over quietly. Qin Yao didn't let them do that and smacked each of them on the head and yelled at them to get out of here. But she thought a little at that moment. If she had been there, how nice it would have been. At this moment, Ling Lan was telling her husband that her cultivation level was being revealed. But Yan also increased his strength and released his phoenix. Janil was still standing in front of the house and said that this was how powerful a great emperor was on his wedding night. But she asked what was going on here. After all, an ice dragon had appeared next to the phoenix. In the room, Lin Lan was telling her husband that she didn't expect the two of them to break through to the next level. Yang replied that it was a credit to his wife. If it wasn't for their energy transfer during coitus, he would never have been able to break through so easily. The system was greatly frustrated and asked why no one thanked the system. After all, it was the system's merit. But the next morning, the head gathered his warriors and asked who dared to strike the sect's soul bell. Do they not know what the 9 strikes of the bell mean? The elder replied to the sect head that he didn't know either. The head went to the sect immediately afterward and said that he welcomed the Supreme Mentor and Her Majesty the Empress. He said at once that it was all his fault. He had brought up his disciples badly, and one of them had dared to strike the bell of the soul 9 times and disturb their peace. Yan told him not to quarrel himself. These 9 strokes were done by himself. The head laughed and said that was it, so it was the mentor, and he thought it was some rookie's pranks. He understood that the 9 strikes of the soul bell meant a threat to the existence of the sect. But what is the founder really up to, he thought. Yang said that today he struck the bell to gather all the sect members. First, to thank them for supporting his marriage, and he had already prepared the previously promised rewards. The head replied to the Supreme Mentor that it was too much. They were just doing their duty after all. He looked at the gifts and saw that there were cleansing pills, unity pills, and even the concentrating pills he so desperately needed for a breakthrough. Yan continued that the second reason was that he wanted to choose a few talented disciples and personally take care of their training to strengthen the power of their sect. The head told the Supreme Mentor to entrust it to him. No one knows the true potential of the Spirit Sword sect better than him. Lin Lan told her husband that her cultivation had already reached the middle stage of Immortal King. Would he be willing to give her a few more tips? Yang replied to his wife that once they returned to the Yuqing Pavilion in the evening, he would give her a private lesson, and he would help her break through again. What would she say to such an offer? The system heard everything and told the owner to at least be ashamed of themselves. And they could have closed the door before making jokes like that. The owner was a shameless man. Can't you do that behind closed doors? She asked. But Qin Yao also came and warned the Supreme Preceptor that she had already brought the best disciples of their sect. Yan looked at them and started spitting. He told her that he had previously instructed her to find talented sect disciples. And why did she bring all the elders? The head replied to the Supreme Mentor that in the Spirit Sword sect, only those with truly outstanding abilities get into high positions. Yan applied his strength, and the system said that the talent levels for cultivation were ordinary, refined, spiritual, heavenly, sacred, innate Tao body. Yan analyzed everyone and saw that there was a majority level of cultivation. He thought that with a potential like Liu Wu Ya's, like the spiritual sword sect, Liu Qing Yao's having a saint body was simply luck sent by the ancestors. Yang said that there are too few strong figures. The difference in levels is large. It is difficult to make a team. Ling Lan supported her husband and told him not to get upset. When they returned, she would post decrees all over the country and gather the best disciples to train in the spiritual sword sect. Yan suddenly jumped up and began to say that there are millions of people in the Great Sheng. Surely there would be some true children of destiny. The system also heard everything and said that it was discovered that the host wanted to find the children of destiny. He was given a task and rewarded with a set of sectarian techniques. Yan replied, 3 years to the soul birth stage, 5 years to the great completion stage. Swordmaster, he is a beginner to an expert. How to temper the great emperor, self-discipline supreme. He called the names of all the books and asked the system, what else is it? The system smiled and replied to the host that it apologized. It was a bug. It has already fixed it. Yang showed the others the books and said that this source breath technique would replace the sect's basic technique. Mo Zixuan will study it with his brothers and sisters. Elders, on the other hand, can practice the ninefold mysterious art in order to attain great completion and undergo tribulation as soon as possible. The boy took a book for himself and said that he was grateful to the supreme mentor. They would practice hard and would not fail. The head started yelling at his younger brother that this technician was extremely powerful and that he couldn't handle it. He suggested that he should be the first to learn it. The younger brother replied to the older brother that he had always yielded to him, so this time he was first. But Elder Bai also said that his life was already coming to an end. Shouldn't he get the first place? Qin Yao sees them and asks if they can behave. The Supreme Preceptor looks at them. Qin Yao suddenly saw the book in front of her as well and asked, is this technique for her? Yan answered her that if she mastered the immortal goddess's divine music, her strength in the future would not yield to a supreme. The system told the host that he was indeed insightful. This technique is perfect for the sacred body of consonance, that is, the holy body of inspiration. Yang replied that it was natural. Qin Yao was shocked and asked, wouldn't she give in to the supreme? She is now very thankful to the Supreme Mentor. She thought it was something incredible. The Supreme Mentor cares for her so much that he gifted her a technique to reach the supreme level. But Yan thought to himself, when everyone had received gifts, how could he leave his wife unrewarded? He didn't say many words and just held out the book to her. Ling Lan asked in surprise, is this the Song of Idle Harmony? Yan replied that this Song of Idle Harmony was created by an ancient saint, and he thought it was perfect for them. He is now considered part of the spiritual sword sect. Lin Lan became very curious and opened the book and decided to look at this amazing technique. She was soon surprised and said that since this idle harmony song was so perfect, tonight they should study it well. Yan replied that since his wife said so, he was fully prepared. Lin Lan was overjoyed and hugged her husband and said that it was wonderful. She didn't expect that she would get a gift too. In the morning, in front of the Golden Gate Palace, Abbess Minhui shouted at Situ and told him to come out immediately. The servant replied to the abbess that the sect leader had ordered that no one should be disturbed before going into seclusion. Minhui shouted at Sung that he was a bastard. His son was killed and he's sitting idly by. The servant asked the abbess that there was no need to shout. He understood her grief but was not the head of the sect grieving. He is now at the crucial stage of the breakthrough. If he is disturbed and loses control, the Golden Gate Palace will be doomed. Minhui replied that she understood. Since they didn't care, she would avenge her son's death herself. She immediately flew out of the sect. Minhei badly shit on soulless old man Sita and thought that she would have to seek help from him. At this time in the spiritual sword sect, Yang was training Qin Yao and said at one point that she was doing it wrong. Suddenly, he felt a strong wind at the back of his neck and was immediately alert. He heard someone turn to the wife and lover of the spirit sword sect and told him to come out here immediately. He thought, is this another attack on the sect's defense barrier? Ling Lan had told him that they had clearly come here with bad intentions. Jan answered her not to be afraid. He would see who dared to defy fate. Qin Yao was also greatly angered and asked, who was it that had no eyes, who dared to appear in the spirit sword sect and make a mess here? She turned to the Supreme Mentor and asked him to let her come out and shut that insolent man up. Yan stepped forward and said that they came with bad intentions. Let her take care of the Empress. He would be back soon. The enemies were trying to break through the barrier at this moment, but they failed. Minghui started to insult him and said that he couldn't even handle even a simple sect defense barrier. What was he for then? The elder replied that this spiritual sword sect has a strangely powerful defense barrier, and it didn't look like it was some run-of-the-mill ninth sect. Suddenly, Yang appeared and said that if they hadn't reached the supreme level, then it wasn't worth wasting their strength. The elder asked him, where did he come from? Let him be careful, or he would be destroyed along with the spiritual sword sect right now. Yang said that he never hides his name, supreme preceptor of the Wang Yang spiritual sword sect. Minghui immediately started walking towards him and saying that he was that damned Wang Yang. Let him immediately bring back her son's life. The elder stopped her and asked her not to get heated and leave it to him. Yang started laughing and said that she was a nun and he was a Taoist, and Father Situao was the head of the Golden Gate Palace. So it turns out a Confucian stole a nun from a Taoist? Their relationship is really so complicated, it's mind-boggling. Daos shouted at him to shut up immediately. He's a brat. He's going to be torn to pieces today. Yang laughed and replied that he was more of a lickspittle jiushi. The Taoist immediately attacked him and used the illusory turquoise wave sword. But Yang was not confused and applied his 5 elements Great Heavenly Way technique. Daos put a little more effort into destroying the guy. But the guy applied his defense and just watched, mocking his opponent. Daos was greatly surprised and wondered how such a thing was possible. He absorbed his sword strike as if it was nothing, and had this guy already reached the level of a supreme? Yan said he could understand his feelings. Why not finish this case here and now? Daso realized that things were very bad and turned to his cousin. But Minhui told him to shut up and called him heartless. This man killed her son, and he's going to keep it quiet. Today, she won't just destroy the spiritual sword sect. She will force that trashy Yeling Lan to marry her son in the afterlife. It didn't work on Yang at all, and his face immediately changed. The system immediately shouted what had appeared. The master's murderous intent had appeared again. Yang raised his sword and said that he used to think that killing enemies was like shooting sparrows with a cannon. But today, he sees that it is really necessary. Daos asked him what he was going to do. Yang smiled and replied that, of course he would send them to Sai Toao. To the underworld, the family should be together. The system suddenly said that it had discovered that the host wished to reunite the family. Reward the sacred technique of the 3 souls method for spirit transformation. She turned to the master and said there was a bounty. Would you care to take a look? Ian replied that he would later. He would deal with that chatty nun first and let loose a fierce attack. The Taoist also decided to use defense against him, but Yang used the sword of illusory furious sea. Daos couldn't handle this fire attack and was badly injured. Minhui told him that all these years he hadn't learned anything. Can't even manage against this puppy. Daos replied to his cousin, in order to kill him, they would have to combine their forces and use the double sword technique. Dao and his cousin used combined swords of water and fire and attacked together. Yan just stood still and repelled their attack. He thought that the Taoists were insolent. Oh, and they're also using some kind of pairing technique for lovers. The system asked the master why he wouldn't use the new technique against them. Yang then asked, isn't the 3 souls method for spirit transformation the same as the 3 pure forms technique? The system replied that it turns out to be something like that. Since they were using a paired sword, he could answer them with a 3 against 2. Ian didn't risk playing with them for a long time and used his new technique. The Taoist was frightened and asked what was this sinister technique. Minhui said that it was definitely an illusion. Only one of these bodies is real. Why would they be afraid of him? But Yan wasn't done with that, and using his fire sword began to destroy them from different directions. The Taoist felt that this sword strike had such a powerful force. Was he really at the level of a supreme? But suddenly, Yang got very close to Minhui and punched her. The Taoist heard her scream and pulled his eyes back. Daso saw that she had failed and lost her balance. He immediately ran after her to catch her. Daos turned to him and asked if he could accept his life in exchange for his cousin's life. But Minhui told him to shut up, and even in hell she wouldn't forgive that bastard. Ian apologized and replied that he was in a bad mood today, so they were both going to die. Daos looked at him with an evil look and said that he guy had gone too far. And since he said so, even at the cost of his life, he would drag him to hell. And he attacked him. The system asked the host to be careful. Ian replied that it felt like it. The scum had decided to blow itself up. Daso started holding the guy and yelled at his cousin to run away. Minhui realized that he should have gone straight to Sutu Xiaocheng, his husband, instead of this lowlife. After that, there was an explosion, and Minhui thought that in the end, even if that scoundrel was a supreme level, from such a powerful explosion, even he wouldn't be able to escape. But suddenly she was hit over the head. Minghui asked, What was this secret technique? Ian replied that he had said that, after all, none of them would leave alive today, and used the flying barrier of the boundless world. Minghui had nothing else to do but say goodbye with her life. But Yang was very angry and finished her off. But Minhui suddenly endured everything and asked him once more to kill her. And her husband won't let it go like that, and soon they will meet in hell. Yang said, after all, he had already ruined his relationship with the Confucianists and Taoists. What was there to lose? Where could it get any worse? The system looked at all this and said that its master was indeed incredible, single-handedly defying the three teachings of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. Ian grabbed her and asked, was this part of her plan too? The system asked back, how could she be plotting something against him, especially since she always tries to help him as much as she can? Yang let her go and said that he hoped that was the case. It was time for them to go back already, and Ling Lan might have already started to worry. Lin Lan met her husband and asked if he was okay. This was so frightening. Qin Yao was no longer surprised from the fact that the Supreme Mentor had once again defeated these fools that dared to attack them. Yan said that these troubles were solved without much effort. Nothing important. Suddenly the head came over and asked the mentor who the assailants were. Yang replied that it was the mother of the very same Situ Ao who had made a mess yesterday and molested his wife. She brought along a sneaky dog, a cousin named Tianquan Joshi. The head was surprised and immediately recognized them. He asked immediately, what should they do now? Jan listened and asked what kind of organization is Moonlight Water Reflections. The head replied that they were groups of 4 like-minded people united by love and art. And in the Confucian world of the Eastern continent, their names are widely known. Yang said it sounds like an alliance of senior citizens, no threat at all. The head thought that the might of the Supreme Mentor was unfathomable. The others from the Moon Water Reflection are unlikely to dare to come and hinder the spiritual sword sect. Yan told them not to worry too much. Just have them continue to diligently practice the techniques he had given them. The head replied that they do train hard. The problem is that the Spirit Sword sect is not originally a great clan. There is so little spiritual energy here that it is very difficult to break through. Yang said, his words made sense. Why don't they find a great clan and take over their spiritual sanctuary? The head replied that it was not necessary, by no means, and you shouldn't start a war between the sects. It would inevitably attract the intervention of the Holy Lands. Yang said that the war between the sects is really too troublesome. He's most afraid of getting involved in karma, and if it drags on, he'll just exhaust himself to death. Is there any other way? The system smiled and replied, what's the big deal? He could trust him. And it received that the master's strong desire to develop a sect was detected. The system rewards him with a purple courtyard stone. Yan took the violet courtyard stone and asked, what was its effect? The system replied that it was enough to place it deep within the sect's spiritual vein, and it would raise its level, increasing the concentration of spiritual energy. The head asked the Supreme Mentor, what was this rare treasure? Yan replied that it was a purple courtyard stone that could improve the quality of the spiritual vein of the Spirit Sword sect. Elder Bai was surprised and said, this is the legendary stone of the Violet Court. Even the ancient great sects don't have such a treasure. Yang picked up the stone in his hands and flew into the air, slamming his hand into the ground with all his might. Bai was frightened and asked what he was doing. The stone's energy simply seeped into the ground and spread completely through the earth's crust. Lin Lan was shocked and told her husband that he was really too strong. The spiritual energy around became much more intense. Qin Yao also realized that the Supreme Mentor was simply incredible. He was even able to transform the spiritual vein. The head suddenly turned to the others and asked, what are they standing for? Let them sit down and start practicing. Elder Bai also told them to rather take advantage of this favorable moment to break through. The students began to cheer and say that they had successfully passed the foundation-laying stage. Lin Lan told her husband that it was the spiritual energy that was so saturated. Why doesn't he train with them? Yan replied that meditation was too slow. Better to double the effort through paired cultivation. Lin Lan blushed and told him that it wasn't even night after all. Let him be patient for a while. Qin Yao was standing nearby at this moment, and she herself also wanted to pair cultivation with the Supreme Mentor. In the morning, Yan woke up and remembered that yesterday's paired cultivation was too intense. He could barely stand up today. Suddenly, he hugged Lin Lan and asked her why she was up so early. She replied that today was the day she returned to her father's house. Had he forgotten? Jan laughed and asked jokingly, what was she saying about visiting her parents? He couldn't forget. Linglan said that she had recently destroyed 6 nations, and Great Shang is still unstable. She needs to be there to keep things under control. Besides, there were many state affairs piling up that needed to be solved. Yan replied that then everything was as his empress wife would say. Suddenly he felt something strange and thought, what's going on? Why had his karmic body weakened so much? The system replied to him that he had survived several battles, so a decrease in karma was normal. And to restore or increase the level of the karmic body, you need to collect more karma. Yan said with surprise that it was also consumable. This mechanism was too illogical. The system replied that when the karmic body reached the Law Emperor level, it would no longer be a problem. Yan thought that it looked like he needed to arrange something grand in the Great Shang to gain more karma. In another territory, a warrior named Chu Tianchen said as he greeted the elder, he immediately realized that those old buggers were up to something again. The old man asked the warrior why he had not supervised the troops during the Great Shang campaign. Because of this, Linglan lost her virgin purity. Chu replied that it was his fault. Let the elder punish him. The old man stood up and asked, punish him? He has no such authority. He said that even though they didn't get Linglan's purity, they still needed to capture it and use it as a medicinal catalyst for training. Chu tells the elder that there are powerful allies in the Great Shang. He thinks it won't be easy to capture them. The elder replied that he would personally participate this time. He doesn't believe that such an insignificant sect like the Spirit Sword sect will be able to protect the Great Shang. Chu said that if the elder participated, they would definitely crush the Great Shang and the Spirit Sword sect. The elder told him to stop procrastinating. Tell him to gather his troops quickly and start marching. Chu walked out of the room thinking that this old bugger was chasing beauty and had dragged the kingdom into a deep hole. And now he's forcing him to go camping. Where would he find men? He'll have to go to that guy, he thought. The next day, there were many people gathered in front of the entrance to the sect. One of the people asked what was going on. Why was there a crowd gathered there? He was asked in reply, does he not know? The empress and the emperor returned to their father's house. The crowd began to greet the empress and the emperor. They also wished them thousands of years of life. The system immediately said that the host was getting nationwide kudos and a significant amount of karma. The system said that the powerful at the level of a great emperor could live for tens of thousands of years. What's a millennium? Yan replied that these simple people were busy all their lives with survival. What would they know about the secrets of the world of perfection? A servant came up to Her Majesty and said that at last she had returned. For many matters await her decision. Linglan replied that yes, and the country cannot remain without a ruler. The news from the border requires immediate intervention. The warriors and servant gathered their troop and greeted the empress and their new sovereign. Linglan said that everyone could stand up. The empress began to say that there was a flood in the southern province. We must send people to help immediately. Not a moment too soon. Jan was already falling asleep at this time, and he was very bored. When will the morning meeting be over? He thought. He doesn't like to work after all. Suddenly, Linglan stood up and said that the meeting was over for today. Everyone could leave. When he heard these words, Yang's eyes shone with happiness. He started yelling that the meeting was finally over. And long live the end of work, and long live the empress. After the meeting, the system asked the host where he was going now. Yang replied that he had made arrangements with the state councillor and would go to see the right hand of Zhu Xin, who had been caught the other day. He thought that if he could subdue her, he would have another strong ally. The councillor approached the sovereign and said that he had thousands of years to live. But Yang replied that he could do without ceremony. The councillor led him in and told him that this was the heavenly prison. It doesn't seem to be far from the palace, and the heavenly prison holds the most dangerous criminals. If something serious happens, only the empress can stop them. The system told the host that she wasn't afraid at all. It's just a little dark in here. Ian replied that. All these mortal prisoners, what is there to be afraid of? But the prisoner called him handsome and asked him to come over, for he wanted to fondle him properly. Jan looked at him menacingly and said, "Is he crazy?" Suddenly the counselor said they've arrived, and it's a first-class cell, so she's locked in here. If it weren't for his treasure suppressing her power, this prison wouldn't be able to hold her. The counselor told the sovereign that Zhu Xin is an incredibly strong opponent. and asked him to be careful. Ian answered her not to worry, he would manage, and the counselor could be free. Ian made his way to the room where the girl was locked and bound, but she didn't move and just sat with her eyes closed. Ian walked over to her and touched her face and said he was going to check her breathing, and if she had a fever. Suddenly, Exian opened her eyes and started screaming at him to let her go, and when she got out, she would kill him. The guy looked at her and saw that she was really beautiful, but it was a pity that her character was like a bitch. The system told the master that, even though she was rude, he could rehabilitate her. Ian asked with surprise, "Re-educate? But that's even a good idea." He opened the book and thought that it was probably the same sacred technique with a changed name. Ian said, "Controlling the spirits. Symbols are paramount. The symbol is the power. The disappearance of the symbol leads to the disappearance of the spirit. And judging from this text, in order to seize control of Jin, you must first destroy her old seal." Ian used his X-ray technique and said he was about to see exactly where this seal was hidden. After finding the point, he said it was a very cunning way, and a heavenly technique for controlling puppets. Jin asked him, "What is he doing? Let him let go." Yang answered her not to worry, soon she would only obey him. Suddenly, Yan opened her mouth and stuck 2 fingers in. The guardian at this moment sensed and asked, who dared to break her seal? She was even very curious about who did it. But suddenly, Chu came to the witch and called her Ying Main Yan. He asked her how she felt about the heavenly prison. Ying replied that it was Emperor Zhuan Yue himself. What made him condescend to the heavenly prison? Chu asked, what if he had come to free her? Ying started laughing and replied that if that usurper's words could be believed, pigs would have learned to climb trees. And if he didn't take pity on that ancient puppet, he would have killed him long ago. But Chu suddenly clenched his fist, and Ying started screaming in pain and begging him to stop. Chu said, "She's probably ready to talk nice to him now, right? But Xin was kidnapped. If she helps him kill that bastard, he'll give her freedom." Ying asked him, and did he think she had a choice? But Chu just walked out and closed the door behind him. Ying shouted that Chu was nothing but a wastrel. He hasn't inherited 1/10 of his father's intelligence, and when she gets out of here, he'll be in trouble. Yang panicked at this time and said that he seems to have overplayed his hand. Although the old seal is destroyed, he can't use this technique. The system suddenly turned to the host and said that the method of controlling the puppets was many. But why limit yourself to the old way? Jan replied that her words made sense. Let her give it some thought. He flipped through the book and said that this seal looked very tempting. He applied the technique and said it might hurt a little, so she would have to be patient for a while. But such a strong energy went out into the sect's territory. People were frightened and asked, what is happening? What a frightening power it is. Lin Lan saw all this too and said that she thought it was in the direction of the heavenly prison. Did something really happen? Ian asked at this point if it had succeeded. The system replied that judging by the noise, it couldn't help but work. Xin came to her senses and asked where was she? And who were they? Is this guy really her master? Jan got excited and said he did it, and that pink seal is really amazing. The system told the host that it congratulated him on successfully subduing the ancient spirit puppet. Immediately, he was given 3 imperial pills of mind and spiritual energy awakening. Ian looked at it and replied that awakening intelligence and raising the level, what an interesting effect it is. We should try it out. He decided to try it on Exin and gave her the pill to eat. Suddenly, Exin felt something and asked what was happening to her body, and the system showed at once that she had risen from the 8th step of a great emperor to the 9th step. Jan said that the mind-awakening fruit effect really works. It doesn't even require additional training to call him master. Suddenly, he decided that he didn't like Xin's name, and from now on, she would be called Wu Xuanji. He turned to heaven and earth and commanded the yin and yang forces to untie the binding ropes. Xuanji freed herself and immediately hugged her master. Yan was surprised and told her to stop. The system started laughing and said that it was about to get interesting. Xuanji showed her master that now she could finally be closer to him. But what was wrong with him? Yan stopped her and replied that something had gone wrong. He opened the book and saw that it was the seal of mad love, and once applied, the puppet becomes incredibly active towards the host. The seal can only be renewed after 100 years. He asked, what is this mechanism? Xuanji suddenly told the master that she was so hot, and could he please help her undress? Yang asked the system at once did she set it up on purpose. The system replied to the host that he should not say that. This seal was his choice, so it had nothing to do with it. Lin Lan entered the prison and asked her husband if he was okay, but she was shocked by what she saw and asked what he was doing. Ian was frightened and replied to his beloved that it was a misunderstanding and let him explain. After that, they went to talk, and Ling Lan was saying that she realized that because of business she might have missed his mood and it was her mistake. But if he so desired, she could arrange for him to escort his concubines. But why did he turn to a puppet for that? Yan replied to her that this was not the case at all. Suddenly the counselor entered the conversation and said that it was all her fault for not controlling the situation. If she had known, she would have invited the sovereign to come to her. Jan turned to her immediately and told her to stop adding fuel to the fire at a time like this. But suddenly Xuanji massaged his head and told him not to get angry. Yang replied that he actually went to the prison to make Xin their ally. It was just that there was a slight glitch in her mind. Lin Lan soon realized and said that she was too impulsive, and she didn't expect her husband to be willing to make such sacrifices for the great Shang. The counselor suddenly looked at Xuanji and said, "Extraordinary. She's just like the real thing," although her intelligence and emotional stability still left a lot to be desired. Jan realized that the mind awakening pill had an expiration period. He would have to wait before giving her another one. Suddenly he remembered that he had 2 white go chips left, and now he would see if it would work. Xuanji immediately opened her mouth and swallowed them. Xuanji felt a fire in her body and asked what was happening to her. Yang answered her that she was making him nervous. Suddenly the counselor said that the defense array was being attacked. But Ling Lan replied that Great Sheng was restless again. Now 2 strong enemies were attacking at once. Yan stood up and replied, "No, it's the 3 of them, and their level is not below the highest level of a great emperor." Ling Lan was surprised and asked, 3 enemies at the highest level of a great emperor? Yang told Xuanji at once to take her sacred spear. She was greatly pleased and thanked her master. Yan told the state counselor that her level was too low. Let her stay in the palace, and suggested to his wife that they should go and teach those insolents a lesson. The counselor replied that she wished good luck and a triumphant return to Her Majesty, and would wait for them here. Stepping outside the barrier, Yang said, "There are unfamiliar faces in front of him today. Don't they know that Great Sheng is now under his protection?" Chu replied that he didn't care who he was. Let him give them Lin Lan immediately, and maybe he would keep him alive. Yang showed his sword and said that this is the Emperor of Chu, and he dares to call himself an emperor in the Great Sheng. The nickname Pseudo-Emperor suits him better. After all, their 2 advisors and 4 generals have already lost to him. And perhaps, as he sees it, today it's their turn. The elder suddenly got angry and told him to shut up immediately. But In liked him and called him handsome and bossy, just like her ideal. But suddenly she felt a lot of pain and asked Chu to stop doing that and bullying her. Chu insulted her and said that he didn't let her out to flirt with men. Let her go and kill that Wang Yang now, or else she'll be in trouble. Ian became curious and asked the system, "What is this amulet? Why does it control creatures on the level of a great emperor?" The system replied that it was most likely a soul control technique. It is quite common in the world of enhancement. Ying called him cute and said they've seen it. She does everything against her will. But when they attack, let them be a little lenient. Ling Lan became very angry and asked, "Where did this fox come from? Let her stay away from her husband, or she would tear her to pieces." Ying asked Sister Ling Lan, "Why is she getting so heated?" She would be careful and would never hurt her husband. The elder was tired of listening to all of this, and showing his strength said for them to stop fighting. It was time to capture the Empress and bring her to the elder to create a seal. He didn't waste any more time and used the Dark Palm Hell Abyss Strike attack. Ian didn't even move aside and just waited for his turn. But soon, his attack was easily repelled. Xuanji reflected and told the old man that he was the biggest threat. Don't even think about approaching her master. And without thinking for a long time, I used the Cloud-Tearing Storm Rage Spear technique. Ying also entered the fray, and calling Yang cute, asked him, "Where is he looking?" After all, his opponent is her. Yang immediately turned around and repelled her attack. But Ying had intended it that way and said that she had caught him. Ian immediately realized that there was no way to cut these ribbons. And these petals, what were they anyway? And called him cute again and suggested that they go to their little world. Suddenly they both disappeared. Finding himself in another world, He realized that these petals were clearly unusual, but he needs to deal with it quickly and help his wife. But suddenly it was a little light, and he pondered again whether it was an array or another space. Unexpectedly, Ying appeared and said with surprise that he looked nice and quite calm. But he's so handsome, it's heartbreaking. I just want to make him my obedient puppet. Yan drew his sword and asked, does she wish to make him a puppet? But someone who could do that had not been born yet. But in his mind he thought, what kind of stupid array is this? And now he must find its weak point. Yin suddenly asked him, didn't he like it? She had specially prepared all this for him. Once here, don't even let her dream of leaving. She is the mistress of this illusory space, capable of destroying everything. Ian didn't take that as a threat and asked, is she capable of destroying everything? But he doesn't really think that's true. He didn't waste his time and applied the heavenly sword of 9 catastrophes, Sunlight Strike. But Ying stepped aside a bit and used her ghost cloud shield that the guy's attack didn't reach her. But it got much worse. Their attacks just clashed and there was a big explosion. Yin started yelling at him that he was crazy. Why doesn't that work on him? Even the higher-ups here have their strength suppressed. Ian smiled and asked, what about the fact that he was stronger than these higher-ups? And he realized that his technique art game would neutralize these effects. The system suddenly told the host to be careful. Although this illusory space was just a wreckage, its destruction could send them into the infinite void. Yan was surprised and asked, so difficult? They should have gotten rid of this Ying Manyang right away. Xuanji was fighting with the elder at this time and told them to let the master go. The elder replied that when he came out, it would only be his corpse. Ying Manyang's illusory space was capable of destroying an ordinary supreme. Xuanzi attacked the old man and told him to shut his mouth, and used a flying starlight meteor black dark palm strike of hidden power. The elder immediately dodged and saw that she was just a puppet. But how could her level increase so dramatically? Chu also fought with the Empress, and said that it was even unexpected. Shin's level has risen. It's really surprising. But Xuanji heard this and asked, what other Shin? She is no longer here. She died a long time ago. Chu immediately ordered the elder, after saying those words, to no longer hold back and deal with her properly. The elder used his body's black magic and thought, since when did Chu dare to point him out? He would have slapped him a few times long ago if the great elder hadn't left him alive for his own purposes. Linlan asked Chu, where did that woman take her husband? If something happened to him, she wouldn't forgive it. Chu asked her, is she talking about Wang Yang? He's no longer alive. No one has ever come out of Ying's illusory space alive. And he also didn't expect that the Empress of Great Sheng also had her own beauty. If not for his ancestors' order, he would have taken her into the harem long ago. Linglan couldn't stand such words and attacked him, shouting that he wasn't alive. But Chu dodged and asked if she thought there was too much difference in levels between them. And as he sees it, it looks like he'll have to tame her himself, or else with such a feisty character she'll ruin all the ancestors' fun. Linglan replied that once Wang Yang got out, he would deal with him like a street dog. She strongly hoped that her husband wouldn't think of getting hurt. In space, Ying said, a question that had been plaguing her for a long time. How did he remove the control symbol from Jin? Yan gave a surprised look and asked, a symbol of controlling Xuanji? Is it difficult? Such primitive things, he could take down such primitive things in an instant. Ying replied that it couldn't be. She had once spent 100 years to turn Shin into a spiritual puppet. Jan said whether she believes it or not is her business. She can see for herself. She is now devoted to him without limits. And told him that since he could take control off her so easily, it meant a deal was possible between them. Ian was surprised and asked, a deal? I mean, they're enemies. Is she even serious about this? And then he thought, what is she up to? Ying replied that if he could help her get rid of this horrible restriction Chu had placed on her, she would be willing to give anything. Ian said, that wasn't quite right. The system was also holding its face and asking, how can this be? This is just too much. Chu at this time was telling Linglan to listen and let her better surrender so as not to make things difficult for herself. But the Empress was persistent and replied that it wouldn't happen. Suddenly, Ying appeared and said that this Wang Yang couldn't stand the game at all. Next time she would choose someone more reliable. Linlan was very scared and asked her, what did she do to her husband? Chu said that this Wang was already definitely not alive. No one has ever come out of Ying Manyang illusory space alive yet. Xuanji was also surprised and asked, did the master lose? Ying told Chu that she had already gotten rid of the biggest threat. It was time for him to fulfill his promise. Chu turned around and asked, "Promise? What kind of promise?" He didn't remember promising her anything. Ying was angry and started shouting at him that he was a miserable liar. He still dares to break his own word. Chu replied that she was just her dog. How dare she even talk to him about terms? But suddenly, unexpectedly, Chu saw a sword pass through his body and came out from the other side. Chu started yelling that she was lousy and a traitor, and of course, she acted too low this time. Ian said that it was only fair to use low methods against the likes of him. He had sent his men to disturb his wife 3 times. That sword attack was already a gift to him. Chu said that Yang was just able to wound him so badly, but thought, what kind of technique was that? How was he able to get so stealthy? If his heart hadn't been displaced from birth, he would have died by now. Lin Lan walked over to her husband and said as soon as he disappeared, she was already starting to worry. Did this woman not do anything to him? She realized that if this fox had done something, she wouldn't forgive her for it. Jan replied that he didn't. Such a tiny space couldn't hold his husband. No need to worry. Everything was under her control. In space, Ian said it was all too open. The system asked the host to try to keep a low profile. Ying replied that she was once part of the Shun Yue imperial family, but trapped by an elder from the Chu house, and she was branded with the symbol and made a prisoner, and all her possessions and powers were taken away. Yang listened and said that this is who Chu is as a traitor to the crown. This is getting more interesting. But what does he get for helping to remove her symbol? Ying thought for a moment and replied that Wang really knows how to negotiate. If he removes this symbol from her, she will become completely his. Ian thought and said that, in that case, let her forgive him for the inconvenience, and applied the dragon claw of complete release. Soon, Ying sighed and replied that it was finally removed. The system also rejoiced and said that it congratulated the master for removing the symbol and obtaining the holy skill of the Boundless Abyss technician. Ian was also very happy because he had a new skill again. This system is so hard-working. Ian said he thought it was some sort of reincarnation technique, and it turned out to be just invisibility. The system replied that, not really. Isn't the master aware of this? Once this technique is activated, it can't be detected by anyone but a saint. No one will be able to attack him either. Yang said that it sounded good, and offered to play with this Emperor Zhuan Yue for a while. Suddenly, in the real world, he noticed and asked his wife, "Why is she wearing torn clothes?" He immediately changed in himself and looked at Chu. Yang asked him, how dare he touch his wife? He can't even imagine how he's going to tear him up right now. Chu told Wang that he should have blown his head right off with his sword. But it's a pity he missed the chance. But now he will show him the power of the Chu family. He drank the pill at once and went from peak emperor to half a step to saint. He said he was the only ruler. Who would dare to dispute? Ian smiled and replied that he was only a stoned, worthless daredevil. And he dared to behave like that in front of strangers. But Chu didn't waste any more idle chatter and decided to already show what he was really capable of. But Yan realized that he needed to show him what a true warrior could do. So he applied the heavenly manifestation of the 9 divine swords of fate infernal heaven. But Chu also fought back and attacked him with the dark infernal ghost arm. The tearing of the dark continent. Suddenly, everything changed, and Chu's attack simply annihilated Yan's attack. But suddenly, he began to vaporize. Lin Lan was surprised and asked how was this possible? Where did her spouse go? Chu was already happy for his victory and started laughing. Chu said that he thought Yang was worth something, but it turns out he can't even take one punch. He called him a coward. But Yan was suddenly behind him and asked, did he really think he could finish him off with one attack? What a naive fool. But even a little curious, how did he even manage to climb so high? But Yan didn't talk to him for long and immediately applied the heavenly manifestation of the 9 divine swords of fate. 9 divine sword tearing gods and demons blade. Chu was unable to do anything and received severe injuries to his body. But at the last, Yan immediately gave him a kick in the ass. Chu just became like a wiffle ball. But Yang caught up with him and was saying that not so long ago he was so cocky. And now what happened? He also said that he had reached half a step to the supreme Tao, and now he was wallowing like a dead dog. Ian began to taunt him as only he knew how, and pulling out his sword, he knocked out his arm. Chu was very scared and immediately asked eldermen to save him. Elder heard the requests and said that he was useless, but he couldn't just leave him here. He immediately used the dark palm of the ghostly evil gap dark continent against Xuanji. The girl was unable to dodge and received a slap. Min flew down after that and said that he had to get there in time. If not, the Elder's entire plan would go to waste. Yang at this time told the guy that his biggest mistake was daring to defy time after time, and in his next life, let him learn to behave like a human being. Yan waved his sword in front of Chu's head, but it suddenly vanished. But the Elder was already holding the dead body in his hands. The Elder immediately began to think, how should he now explain himself to the Elder? Ming turned to Wang Yang and asked if he realized who he had just killed. It was Emperor Zhuan Yue. Ian asked, "What other emperor?" "So what of it?" He dared to defy him and got what he deserved. Besides, he took his throne by force, too. You could say that he only helped to restore justice. Ming lost his temper and told the young man not to be so bold. After all, the Chu clan's strength was beyond his control, Ian thought and asked, then why didn't he check today to see how deep this swamp of their clan was? And said that since things are working out like this, he'll even see how deep that turtle puddle of Chu is today. Ming replied to the guy, what an impertinent person he was. Today the old man would personally tear him to shreds and avenge Chu. But in his mind he thought, what level was Wang Yang? Chu couldn't even fight back against him. Yang took it upon himself and applied the heaven and earth great dragons of fire light, and immediately ascended to the 9th step of the Tao Emperor. Earlier, Ming asked the head, did he really need to personally accompany this Chu guy to catch Lin Lan? But there were hardly any great emperors left in the great D Empire as it was, in his opinion. Suddenly, the head interrupted him and asked, does he want the Elder to personally go and capture this stuff? Ming bowed and asked the Elder not to be angry. He would immediately go and make sure that Chu would capture Ling Lan as soon as possible. The head said that once he obtained her holy, Phoenix reborn body, he would be able to break through his level boundaries and extend his life. Let him not delay and leave immediately. And even must remember, no matter what happens, he is obligated to get Chu back by all means. Min realized during the attack that it was too dangerous to stay here, and to return would mean signing his own death warrant. So it looks like the only thing left for him to do is to run away. And when that old fart finally dies, he will become the head of the Chu family of the Eastern continent. During his attack, he used the dark, ghostly, evil technique of a cloud-splitting wave. Suddenly, a huge palm appeared in front of Yan's face. But Ian was not frightened, and replied that he wanted to see what he could do as a decrepit old man who already had one foot in the grave. The system asked the master, how could he take that blow to the forehead? This old man is half a step up to the supreme overlord. Suddenly, Ian used a huge bell and repelled the old man's attack. The system started cursing and saying that he had blocked its entire view. How sneaky is he? Yang told her not to worry. There was no way he would run away. And then Min thought, this is a great chance. Before the guy comes to his senses, we need to run away immediately. He used his dark, ghostly shadow technique. Ian looked at the system and said he was busted, and now he would see where this old man would go. He used the 5 chess technique, flying oath of absolute peace. Ming got caught and told the guy that he was really cunning. To kill him, no tricks were spared. Suddenly, Xuanqi asked, subterfuge? And he's not even worthy of him using his true strength. Ming didn't waste any time, and upgraded his strength to the first step of a supreme lord. Ling Lan also sensed this energy and asked, is this the pressure of a supreme lord? Ying asked her suddenly, is she making a fuss over such nonsense? Really a redneck. How can you be an empress and have so little experience? She wondered what kind of madness had attacked this old Chu, if he was so desperate to break through to the highest lord. Since the seal had already been broken on her, maybe she should just hide and lay low for a while, she thought. The system told the host that this old man is now the ultimate overlord. Maybe he'll let the system step in and help him. Yan replied that there was no need to timing. He had sacrificed his cultivation for a breakthrough. He was far from a true supreme lord. Min just lost his temper and said he'd put everything on the line tonight, but dragged him to hell with him. Xuanji said that as long as she was here, he wouldn't get one step closer to his master. Yang replied to her that this old man had already lost his mind. If she fought him, she might get hurt. Xuanji told the master that she still hadn't defeated a single enemy for him. Jan replied that it was no big deal. She had already done a great job today. He'll deal with this old man himself. Let him step aside. Jan looked at the old man and told him to stop howling. Let him come over already and accept his death. Ming suddenly turned into a monster with a strong attack. He said back to the guy that he was an insolent puppy, and he wanted to see how he could withstand the Supreme Lord's full-strength strike. Ming used his strongest seal attack, and was already ready to celebrate his victory. But at the last moment, Yan used an illusion technique and dodged Ming's seal. Lin Lan was greatly frightened at the moment when the enemy attacked her husband. Ming said that, in an instant, there wasn't even a trace left. This is what the difference in levels means. Does he understand? Jan was suddenly behind him and replied that death was already under his nose and he didn't even realize it. What a stupid old man. The boy took the chance and attacked him from behind, but without thinking for long, he stuck his sword into his enemy's chest. Min was shocked and asked what kind of technique was that. Yan replied that it was a technique unworthy of his knowledge. Ling Lan immediately ran up to him and asked, was he definitely fine after that punch? She was so worried. The counselor also suggested to him that she check on his condition. Ian replied that they should not worry, he was fine. Ying looked at him at this moment and saw that Wang Yang was not only handsome, but also incredibly strong. His power is simply bottomless, and she felt that he could be a great support. But suddenly, the system told the host to take his time leaving. This task reward has not yet been received. Ian was surprised and asked, a reward? Doesn't she usually give it out right away? Or is she having girl days again? The system got angry and replied, what other women's days does the system have? Suddenly it thought and answered that it does. But Yan noticed that the absolute slack system was behaving the same as last time. Would the reward be the same heavenly Tao shard again? The system didn't hesitate long and showed him the new crystal. It shouted with joy that it was wonderful, and she and her master had obtained the second shard of heavenly Tao. She immediately told the owner to put it in soon, and they'll see what the changes are. Ian was surprised and asked, what? Is there really something in this world that he doesn't know? The system replied that the heavenly Tao is the laws that make up this world. It is above everything. Her powers are not fully unlocked at the moment, so she is not omniscient yet. Ian asked in surprise, not yet omniscient? If he'd known, he wouldn't have let himself get screwed over like that. The system rejoiced and said that it congratulates the host on another breakthrough, and congratulates him on a new step on the way to the heavenly Tao. Yang said that he had finally reached the peak of a great emperor. Although this feigned stupidity sounds kind of ridiculous, the system responded to the master not to underestimate it. With this ability, he could hide his cultivation level and avoid detection by any means below saint level. Ian was surprised and said that's how it's a function to pretend to be weak and then humiliate everyone. You can pose as a pathetic rookie and beat up your enemies. Fun. He ordered Zhuangji to search these losers and take away everything of value. He would reward her generously. Zhuangji replied to the master, which was fine. Lin Lan asked her husband, after such a fierce battle, is he definitely not injured? Ian asked, how could he be injured? Everything was blown to splinters with ease. Lin Lan told her husband that she was so worried, and she didn't think he was so brave and irresistible. It makes her heart flutter. Lin Lan saw that Ying started hitting on his husband and told her to move away from him immediately. Ying asked her sister why she was worried. Doesn't he have confidence in his spouse? Lin Lan got angry and shouted at her to stop pretending. And don't let her think that her machinations will go unnoticed. Ying replied that she didn't expect her sister to be so smart. But Ling Lan is right. She really wanted to give herself to him in gratitude for saving him. Ling Lan threatened and said that if she dared to even lay a finger on her husband, she would destroy her to the last speck of dust. Ying asked Sister Lin Lan, does she really want to fight? After all, she's at the 8th step of a great emperor. But at this point, Yang decided not to get into an argument and said that he would go check on Zhuangji's loot. As he left, he added that women who fight are scary. Let's get out of here. The system asked the master, does he really have days like this too? Zhuangji suddenly shouted to the master that she was reporting that she had taken off all their valuables. Yang suddenly asked, why did the Zhuanyue dynasty have such poverty? Just this tattered scroll turned out to be a holy relic, and the rest was just imperial junk. He suddenly handed her one thing and told her to take these items and find a way to betray them back to the Spirit Sword sect. Soon the rumors spread, and the guy asked the others if they had heard the news. They say that Emperor Zhuan died in their great Sheng. Guy replied that yes, it's already all over the country. Her Majesty declared a general amnesty and even abolished taxes. The narrator said that if Emperor Zhuan fell in the great Sheng, wouldn't there be an all-out revenge from their country? The guy replied, "What's there to worry about? Their sovereign is wise and invincible. He would fear them more if he were the Zhuan dynasty." After the battle, the guys came to the sect, and Ying asked Brother Wang Yang, what had she done wrong that he was so wary of her? Ling Lan stood up and said that she was now suspected of invading Great Sheng. Better let her tell everything she knows or she will rot in the dungeon. Ying was proud and sat down at her chair and asked her sister Ling Lan, does she want to take this opportunity to get back at her? She can apologize, but she can keep quiet. Ling Lan asked her husband what he would say. Yang told Mrs. Yin that he thought it was better for her to cooperate. Ying smiled and replied to Brother Wang that she didn't expect him to like such games. Prisons or illusory space? Anything suits her. Ian coughed and said they could do without it. Ying got upset and replied that he didn't get the joke. But let them ask what they wanted, she would answer. Ling Lan said that she had heard that he was the true heir to the Zhuan dynasty. So, how did the Chu family seize the throne? Ying replied that 600 years ago, when she was traveling alone, her father had taken in the wandering Chu clan. In just 100 years, they had usurped power and then persuaded her father to betroth her to that cursed Chu Tiancheng. At the engagement party, the ancient ancestor of the Chu family and their elders suddenly struck. They killed her father and made her a prisoner. This was how the Chu family took possession of the Shan dynasty. Yang immediately realized that these Yin and her father were so naive. Letting themselves be deceived and then having a bloody wedding was just a farce. Yang thought and said, "It comes out that the Chu family is really vile. She knows them well. What are their current strengths?" Ying replied that she was grateful to Brother Wang for that. After all, he had killed Chu Tiancheng and Chu Shimin, and this immediately weakened them by half. Now they only have Chu Shixuan and that old fart left. They're not much stronger than him. Ling Lan said that if the Chu family only had 2 old men left, they would simply wipe them off the face of the earth. Yang asked her if she would think again. Ling Lan began to think and realized that exterminating the Chu family was inevitable. But exterminating the 9 clans was too troublesome. If even one was missed, the consequences might be too complicated. Ling Lan said that she had already decided everything. Let the guards pass her decree to the guards. She is appointing the sovereign as the commander-in-chief of all troops. Choose a day for the ceremony and begin the march on the Zhuan dynasty. Yan was surprised and thought, what a battle madman. She wanted to destroy one family, and now she's going for the whole country. Ying suddenly told Brother Wang that he was so determined. He started a war for her sake. It's so touching. Yang told her to shut up and tell her to stop adding fuel to the fire. Ling Lan told Ying not to worry. Her revenge would be taken by her. Ying replied that she would then thank Empress Sis in advance. Ling Lan knew that she would definitely wipe the Zhuan dynasty off the face of the earth so that she would have no desire for her husband. But Ying was already thinking that when they destroyed the Chu family and regained the throne, she would donate the country to Brother Wang, and then they would be on equal footing. But Yang thought at this moment that after defeating Chu and the fall of the Zhuan dynasty, he was entitled to a long vacation. The system immediately replied to him that it would be interesting to watch. Yang asked, could the attack on the Zhuan dynasty not be postponed? After all, they are still on their wedding journey. Lin Lan asked him, what other kind of wedding journey is there? In the 4 seas and 8 lands, there is no such thing. Chu Tianchen had just died. The Zhuan dynasty was now in complete chaos. If we don't act now, when will we act? She immediately turned to the servants and told them to help the sovereign change his clothes and let him not dare to miss a favorable time for the swearing-in ceremony. Yan started crying and told the empress that he didn't like social events. Can he not go? Ling Lan replied that he can't. Besides, he would soon officially appoint him as the commander-in-chief of all the troops. At this time in the capital of Zhuan dynasty, a servant said that the eldest prince had long helped the ruler to manage the affairs of state. He was the most suitable candidate to inherit the throne, and the fate of the country hangs in the balance. The throne must be taken by the strongest. He proposes to return the second prince immediately to stabilize the situation in the state. The servants told the left minister that the elder prince was his pupil. He had always been distinguished for his wisdom and endurance. Shouldn't he support him? The second servant also said that the second prince was also his disciple. His determination and agility is a well-known fact. Qi at this moment heard them and saw that they were just fools, and without understanding the true state of affairs, they are already rushing to choose a side. This is just suicide. Qi asked them, "What are they yelling about?" "He is here to decide who will rule the Zhuanyue dynasty." The servants immediately thought, "How is this possible? Is this really a usurpation?" Chu Tiande told them to listen to him carefully. Immediately let them prepare the enthronement ceremony. He must take full control of the country as soon as possible. One of the guys said he's only the son of a concubine. In terms of parentage, he's only the emperor's cousin. What makes him think he has the right to claim the throne? One of the servants went to the elder and asked what should be done with these people. The elder replied menacingly that they should be destroyed. The guys who started to resent it immediately after the elder's words were killed. Tiang Di said the next day that he would sit on the throne. And now we have to decide who's in favor and who is against. In the Shang kingdom, things were different, and the servants welcomed the sovereign and empress. The head heard that it was said that the supreme mentor had been promoted, which meant that the prestige of the spiritual sword sect would rise. But Qin Yao wondered if the Lord would take her along on the quest. "I can't wait." The counselor looked at them too and saw that the sovereign was even more handsome today than yesterday. But Ying was upset because the spotlight was once again on Ling Lan. Ling Lan came out in front of everyone and said that the auspicious hour had arrived. The sacrifice to the heavens was beginning. Ian also took part and saw that very grandiose action. He even wondered how many stages it would take. Let it end sooner rather than later. The councilwoman began to read the decree and said that the sacrifice was complete and it was time to begin the announcement of the manifesto. Lin Lan said, disregarding diplomatic agreements and invading their land. This is the first mortal sin. He pursued tyrannical policies and caused popular unrest. This is the second mortal sin. Lin Lan suddenly walked over to her husband and apologized. She said that they had just gotten married and she was already putting such a heavy responsibility on him. And she was truly sorry. Jan replied that it was no big deal. He'd get there and back quickly. Maybe even make it in time for the end of the honeymoon. Ian began to panic and felt his head splitting. What was he going to say at the ceremony? The system told the gentleman to try this new AI assistant. It will help solve any problem, can write 5,000 words for an oath speech in a second. Jan told her to shut up. He's lazy, but he's not paralyzed. There's no need to plan after him in such detail. And then, who's going to listen to those 5,000 words? That's an eternity. Yang coughed and said that the Zhuanyue dynasty must be destroyed. There's no way without it. Let them think to themselves. They were sitting quietly at the wedding banquet, listening to music, and they suddenly burst in and tried to steal the bride. So, only without the Zhuanyue dynasty would there be a peaceful life. He raised the medallion and shouted that it was time to march. In another sect, Qi came to the head and told him that urgent news from the front lines. The great Shang dynasty had sent out a 20,000-strong army led by sovereign Wang Yang and was preparing to invade their land. The head smiled and replied, "What naivety! Do they really think they can destroy their empire with such an army? Who gave them such confidence?" Qi replied to His Majesty that, although 20,000 soldiers were nothing to them, Wang Yang was very dangerous. Even the late emperor died by his hand. The head got angry and shouted at him to shut up. Since when did he dare tell him what to do, you lowlife? Qi realized at this moment that this Chu Tiande was not even worth the late emperor's little finger. It looked like the Zhuanyue dynasty was doomed. Tiangde told him that since he was so loyal, let them send out with 1,000,000 soldiers and crush these mutts from the great Shang. Qi was surprised and asked the head, is he suggesting him to fight Wang Yang again? The warriors were also thinking at this moment on the road, did the great Shang finally have a chance to strike back? This is simply amazing. Yan was in the carriage at this time and said that taking care of 20,000 people, their food, drink, and toilets was too much of a hassle. It would be easier to cut into Chu's lair and slaughter them all alone. Suddenly, the system said that the host's desire to control the army was detected. The invincible military campaign system is activated. Ian asked, is this some kind of system where you can just click your mouse and win battles? The system replied that nothing was impossible for him. what to speak of the capabilities of this system. She said the Invincible State Wars system will display basic information about the two countries and comparative analysis from military might on the main screen. Ian asked with surprise. 500 versus 3,000? Has the system broken? After all, he is at the peak of a great emperor, and it shows such numbers. The system told the host that the outcome of a war does not depend on numerical superiority alone, and there are many factors that influence victory. Jan thought for a moment and replied that it made sense. So what does this invincible system do? The system replied that it includes many functions: full holographic battlefield surveillance, intelligent command system, intelligence network. Ian asked, the arsenal of the national war? But suddenly he saw Italian guns and asked, can they be exchanged? The system asked the host, does he really want it? Jan replied that he was telling her to give him some Italian guns. He wished to amuse himself. The system told the host that since this was a cultivator world, it was too unfair to use Italian cannons in battles. Ian asked, does her invincible war system seem fair to her? But it would be better if he adapted to the situation a little. The system responded to the host that it would now credit him with 100,000 military campaign points and update the store. Jan got excited and said, that's better. Now he will see what fun toys there are. The system was formed because a non-owner didn't pay attention to the hastily made store interface. Ian went into the depths and did not stop. The system, having seen such a thing, realized that now the opponents were not to be envied. At this time, a large and beautiful eagle flew over the camp of Zhuan Yue's army. But the main chamber of the army said that Great Sheng's main forces were camped only 10 li away from them. According to intelligence reports, they had just over 100,000 soldiers. But what a small thing, their 20,000-man advance army would devour them in one sitting. The warriors replied to the general that the situation on the battlefield was still unclear, and Wang Yang is said to be among them. He would recommend waiting for reinforcements. The general asked, 30,000 against 100. The advantage is on our side. And no matter how Wang Yang is, he won't be able to kill them all. But the warrior told the general that the left minister had ordered no action until he arrived. The general replied that new power, new orders. Elder Qi Wenyuan had long since lost his influence. The general said he had an order in front of him. The whole army is on the offensive. Destroy Great Sheng's forces and then have lunch. The warriors said it was time to move on and were immediately ordered to line up in battle order.